Emily Parker knew something was wrong the moment Mark squeezed her hand in the car. Not because he was angry, not because he was cold. Those things she could have understood. Anger had a sound, coldness had a weight, but this was worse. He was gentle, his fingers wrapped around hers as they drove through the quiet, tree-lined streets of West Haven toward his mother's house, and he smiled at her as if nothing in the world was broken. "You're quiet tonight," he said. Emily looked at him from the passenger seat. The glow from the dashboard painted one side of his face blue. Mark Reynolds had always been handsome in a polished way, the kind of man who looked as if he had been born wearing a clean white shirt and knowing which fork to use at a formal dinner. His hair was combed neatly back. His watch caught the streetlights whenever he turned the wheel. Everything about him looked controlled. Too controlled. "I'm just tired," Emily said. "You've been tired a lot lately." There was no concern in his voice, only observation. Emily turned toward the window. Outside, the houses became larger, set farther back from the road, each one with trimmed hedges, warm porch lights, and cars that cost more than some people's yearly salary. The Reynolds family lived in a brick colonial home at the end of a cul-de-sac, a place that always made Emily feel as if she had entered a room where everyone had already decided she didn't belong. Mark's mother, Margaret, had never said those exact words. She didn't need to. She said it in the way her eyes lingered on Emily's department store dress, in the way she corrected Emily's table manners after 6 years of marriage, in the way she introduced her as Mark's wife instead of by name, as if Emily were an accessory her son had purchased against better advice. "Mom wants tonight to be peaceful," Mark said as they turned into the driveway. Emily almost laughed. "Your mother has never wanted anything peaceful in her life." Mark did not laugh. That made her look at him again. He parked behind his younger brother's SUV, then took his phone from the cup holder. A message lit the screen before he could hide it. Emily saw only 4 words. "Tonight, don't back out." Mark turned the phone face down. "Work?" Emily asked. "Yes. You're getting a lot of work messages after hours lately." He looked at her with a soft smile that didn't touch his eyes. "That's what happens when people depend on you." The words should not have hurt, but they did. They felt aimed. Emily waited for him to explain. He didn't. Instead, he stepped out of the car, walked around, opened her door, and offered his hand like a husband in a photograph, like a man performing tenderness for an invisible audience. Inside, the Reynolds house smelled of roast lamb, red wine, and Margaret's expensive vanilla candles. The dining room had already been set. Crystal glasses, silver chargers, folded navy napkins. Margaret Reynolds stood near the sideboard, wearing pearls and a cream blouse, her gray blonde hair swept into a flawless knot. "Emily," Margaret said. Not hello, not welcome. Just her name, spoken like a minor inconvenience. "Margaret," Emily replied, forcing a smile. Mark leaned down and kissed his mother's cheek. "Dinner smells amazing. For my son, anything," Margaret said, touching his face with open affection before her gaze shifted to Emily. "I wasn't sure if you still ate lamb. You always seem to have some new restriction." "I eat lamb," Emily said. "Oh, good. I'd hate for you to sit there picking at salad all night. It makes people uncomfortable." Emily felt Mark's fingers brush the small of her back, guiding her forward. To anyone else, it might have looked protective. To Emily, it felt like being moved into position. Mark's brother, Daniel, was already at the table with his wife, Rebecca. An aunt and uncle had come too, along with Margaret's closest friend, Elise, who had known Mark since childhood and treated him like local royalty. Everyone greeted Emily politely, but the room held that familiar Reynolds chill. Polite faces, sharp eyes. Dinner began with forced conversation. Margaret asked Daniel about his children, asked Rebecca about a charity event, asked Mark about work. When she finally turned to Emily, it was not to ask how she was. "So, Emily," Margaret said, cutting her lamb into tiny, perfect pieces, Are you still working at that property management company? Emily kept her smile. Yes, I'm the finance manager now. How nice, Margaret said. I suppose numbers are very dependable, not like people. A strange silence followed. Emily glanced at Mark. He was looking at his plate. Rebecca cleared her throat. That sounds like a big promotion. It is, Emily said gratefully. I handle several client accounts now. Budgets, audits, vendor payments. It keeps me busy. Margaret sipped her wine. Too busy, perhaps. Emily knew better than to ask. But tonight, some tired part of her failed to stop itself. What do you mean? Margaret gave a delicate shrug. Marriage requires attention. A home requires attention. A husband requires attention. Mark set down his fork. Emily looked at him again. His jaw tightened, but not in defense of her. Margaret continued, when Mark was young, he said he wanted a family, a real family, children running through the house, Sunday dinners, traditions. Emily's throat closed. The subject of children always came like a blade wrapped in silk. Margaret knew about the miscarriage 2 years ago. She knew about the months of quiet grief afterward. She knew the doctor had told Emily stress might have played a role. Still, she never missed an opportunity. We've talked about this, Emily said quietly. Margaret smiled. Have you? Or have you postponed it the way modern women postpone everything inconvenient? Mom, Daniel said warningly. But Mark said nothing. That silence hurt more than Margaret's cruelty. Emily reached for her water glass, and as she did, she noticed Mark's phone light up on his lap under the table. He glanced down. Another message. She couldn't read this one. He tilted the screen away too fast. Is everything okay? Emily asked. Mark locked the phone. Fine. But his hand was trembling, only slightly. So slightly no one else would have noticed. Emily noticed. For the next 10 minutes, the conversation moved without her. Margaret spoke about a neighbor's daughter who had married a wonderful surgeon. Elise mentioned a country club renovation. Daniel tried twice to include Emily, but every answer she gave seemed to sink into the table and disappear. Then Mark stood. The movement was so sudden that everyone looked up. Mark? Margaret asked. He placed both hands on the back of his chair. His face had gone pale, but his voice, when he spoke, was steady. I'm sorry, he said. I can't do this anymore. Emily stared at him. Do what? Mark looked at her then, and the expression on his face stole the breath from her lungs. Pain, not real pain. Arranged pain. The kind an actor wore in a courtroom drama. I can't sit here and pretend my marriage isn't falling apart, he said. The room froze. Margaret lowered her wine glass. What are you talking about? Mark swallowed. His eyes glistened, but no tears fell. I wanted to handle this privately. I really did, but Emily has left me no choice. Emily pushed back her chair. Mark, what are you doing? He did not answer her. He reached for the remote on the sideboard. Mark, she repeated, sharper now. He turned on the television mounted above the fireplace. For a second, the screen was black. Then a video began to play. Grainy security footage, a hotel hallway. The timestamp in the corner showed 10:43 p.m., 3 nights earlier. Emily recognized the hotel immediately. The Alderbrook, downtown. She had passed it many times on her way to client meetings. A man appeared first. Tall, dark hair, gray jacket. He leaned against a door, checking his phone. Then a woman stepped into frame. Emily's heart stopped. The woman had her hair, her face, her body. She wore Emily's blue wrap dress, the one with the soft sleeves and thin waist tie. The one Mark had once said made her look like the woman he fell in love with. The woman smiled at the man in the gray jacket. He reached for her hand. She let him pull her close. Then they disappeared together into the hotel room. No one spoke. Emily stared at the screen, unable to move. Her mind rejected what her eyes were seeing. That was not possible. It was not possible because she had never been there. She had been home that night, reviewing vendor invoices until nearly midnight. She remembered spilling tea on her notes. She remembered Mark coming home late and kissing her forehead as if nothing in the world was wrong. But The woman on the screen looked exactly like her. Almost exactly. Margaret was the first to break the silence. "You filthy little liar." Emily flinched as if slapped. "Mom," Daniel said, but his voice was weak. Mark turned off the television. The screen went black, leaving Emily's own reflection faintly visible in it. For one horrible second, she saw herself where the woman had been. "That isn't me," Emily whispered. Margaret laughed once, harsh and disbelieving. "You expect us to believe that?" "It isn't me." Mark looked down. "Emily, please. Don't please me." Her voice cracked. "Where did you get that?" "A private investigator," Mark said. "After I saw the hotel charge." "What hotel charge?" He reached into a folder Emily hadn't noticed on the sideboard. He had prepared this. The realization hit her like ice water. Mark laid several papers on the table. A hotel receipt. Emily Parker. One night. Room 614. Her email address. The last 4 digits of her credit card. Her fingers went numb. "That's not mine," she said. "It is your card," Mark said. "I didn't book anything." "Then why is your name on it?" "I don't know." Margaret stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "Do not raise your voice in my house." Emily turned to the others. "I wasn't there. I swear to God, I wasn't there." Rebecca looked frightened. Daniel wouldn't meet her eyes. Elise pressed a hand to her mouth as if Emily had brought disease into the dining room. Mark took out his phone. "There's more." "Stop," Emily said. But he didn't. He projected screenshots onto the television. Text messages. Her name at the top. Her phone number. "I can't wait to see you again. Mark is working late. Room 614. Don't be late." Emily grabbed her own phone from her purse with shaking hands. She opened her messages. Nothing. No thread. No unknown number. "These aren't on my phone," she said. "They were deleted," Mark replied. No, this is insane." She looked at him, searching his face for the man she had married. "Mark, my phone was missing last week, remember? I couldn't find it all day. You said you found it in your car." His expression did not change. "I found it where you left it." "No, I didn't leave it there." Margaret made a disgusted sound. Now she's blaming him. "I'm not blaming him. I'm saying someone had my phone." Mark gave a bitter laugh. "Emily, please listen to yourself." There it was. The tone, soft, reasonable, cruel. The tone of a man trying to make a woman sound unstable. Emily stood. "You know this isn't me." Mark stared at her. For a second, something flickered behind his eyes. Not doubt, satisfaction. Then it vanished. "Camera doesn't lie," he said. The sentence landed in the room like a verdict. Margaret rounded the table. "Do you know what you've done to my son? Do you know what kind of woman betrays a man like Mark?" "A woman who was never at that hotel," Emily said. "Liar!" "Margaret," Daniel said more firmly this time. But Margaret was unstoppable. "He gave you a home, a name, a place in this family, and this is how you repay him? By sneaking around like some cheap—" "Enough!" Emily shouted. Everyone froze. Her whole body shook. She could hear her pulse in her ears. She had never shouted in Margaret's house before. She had never allowed herself to. Mark stepped toward her. "Emily, don't make this worse." She turned on him. "Worse? You bring me here, humiliate me in front of your entire family, show them some fake video, and I'm making this worse?" Mark's face hardened. Then he opened the folder again. "I didn't want to show this tonight," he said. Emily felt dread move through her. He handed the next document to Margaret first, like a son offering proof to a judge. Margaret read it, her lips parted. "What is this?" Emily demanded. Mark passed a copy to her. It was a bank withdrawal authorization. Joint savings account. Amount, $287,000. Authorized by Emily Parker. Her signature sat at the bottom of the page. For a moment, Emily couldn't even understand what she was looking at. Then the room tilted. "No," she said. Mark's voice was quiet. "The money is gone, Emily." "What money?" "Our savings." "No." "You withdrew nearly everything." "No, I didn't." "There is bank footage, too." Emily gripped the back of her chair. "That is not my signature." Margaret snatched the paper from her. "It looks exactly like your signature." "It's forged." "Of course it is." Margaret said with poisonous sweetness. The video is fake. The receipt is fake. The messages are fake. The signature is fake. Everyone is lying except you. Emily looked at Mark. Tell them the truth. He stared back. I am. No, you're not. His eyes sharpened. For the first time that night, the mask slipped enough for her to see the man underneath. Not hurt, not betrayed, in control. Mark stepped close, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Then prove it. Emily's breath caught. There it was. Not confusion, not heartbreak, a challenge. He knew the woman in that video was not Emily. He knew because he had arranged it. The certainty didn't arrive as a thought. It arrived as a physical thing, cold and solid behind her ribs. She whispered, What did you do? Mark stepped back and raised his voice again. I've already spoken to an attorney. I'll be filing for divorce. Margaret nodded immediately. Good. Emily felt as if the floor had disappeared. Mark continued. Given the circumstances, I'll be asking for the house. I can't risk shared property being drained further. You drained it, Emily said. Margaret slapped her. The sound cracked through the dining room. Emily's head turned with the force of it. For a second, no one moved. Even Mark looked surprised. Then Margaret pointed toward the front door. Get out of my house! Emily slowly touched her cheek. Heat spread under her fingers. Daniel stood. Mom, that was too far. No, Margaret said. Too far was bringing this woman into our family. Emily looked around the room, waiting for someone to speak. Rebecca looked devastated but silent. Daniel's face was pale. Elise stared at the table. No one came to Emily's side. Not one person. She picked up her purse. Mark watched her as she walked toward the hall. At the doorway, she stopped and turned back. Her cheek throbbed, her eyes burned, but she refused to cry in front of them. I don't know who that woman is, she said, but she is not me. Margaret folded her arms. There is no other woman with your face. Emily looked at Mark. He smiled faintly. So faintly no one else would have seen. Emily left before she gave him the satisfaction of watching her break. Outside, the night air hit her like cold water. She stood on the Reynolds' front steps, breathing too fast, the muffled sound of voices behind her pressing against the door. Her hands shook so badly she dropped her car keys twice. She drove home without remembering the route. The house she shared with Mark sat in a quiet neighborhood 15 minutes away. A white two-story with black shutters and hydrangeas Emily had planted herself. The porch light was on. For one desperate second, she told herself that going inside would make things normal. She would wash her face, sit at the kitchen table, open her laptop, and prove the bank transaction was impossible. She would find timestamps, emails, something. She pulled into the driveway, got out, and went to the front door. The keypad blinked red when she entered the code. She tried again. Red. Again. Red. A slow horror rose in her throat. She tried Mark's birthday. Their anniversary. The emergency code they had used for years. Red. 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 The lock had been changed. Emily pounded on the door. Mark! No answer. She called him. He answered on the fourth ring. What did you do to the lock? She demanded. There was silence on the other end. Then Mark sighed. Emily, you shouldn't be there. It's my house. It's our house. And based on what happened with the account, my attorney advised me to secure the property. Your attorney advised you to lock your wife out in the middle of the night? My attorney advised me to protect myself. From me? From whatever you're capable of right now. The words were carefully chosen. She could almost hear him building a record, making himself sound calm, making her sound dangerous. Emily lowered her voice. You set me up. Another pause. Then Mark said, You need help. She laughed, but it came out broken. You son of a bitch. I'm going to hang up now. Mark, open the door. I can't do that. My medication is inside. My laptop is inside. My clothes are inside. I'll have Daniel bring you some things tomorrow. Mark. But the call ended. Emily stood on the porch in the cold, staring at the door of her own home. A curtain moved in the house across the street. Mrs. Hensley, the neighbor, quickly stepped back when Emily looked over. So they were watching already. Of course they were. Emily pressed both hands to her mouth, trying to hold herself together. Then rain began to fall. At first, just a mist, then harder, soaking her hair, her blouse, the thin fabric of her dress. She stood there too long because leaving felt like surrender, because every flower in the front bed had been planted by her, because every curtain had been chosen by her, because the kitchen tiles had taken 3 weekends of arguing and laughter and dust, because she had made that house a home. And now, Mark had turned it into evidence against her. Finally, numb and shaking, she returned to her car. She checked her bank app with wet fingers. The joint savings balance loaded slowly. Available balance: $1,842.17. Emily stared at the number. Nearly $300,000 gone. She opened the transaction history. Wire transfer. Wire transfer. Cashier's check. Authorization completed in person. Her name attached to all of it. She called the bank's fraud line from the car, rain hammering the windshield. After 15 minutes of verification, a woman named Allison came on the line. Mrs. Parker, I can confirm that the withdrawal authorization was completed at our downtown branch. I didn't authorize anything. The transaction was verified with ID. My ID was stolen. The representative noted that the ID matched the customer present. Emily closed her eyes. Was there security footage? Yes, there would be internal footage, but we can only release that with a formal request or subpoena. Can you at least tell me what she looked like? A pause. Mrs. Parker, what did she look like? I'm not permitted to describe security footage. Did she look like me? The silence that followed was answer enough. Emily gripped the steering wheel. Someone used my face. The woman on the line softened. You should file a police report. Emily almost laughed again. With what? A story about a woman wearing her face? A husband who had already painted her as unstable? A bank that had watched Emily Parker walk in and steal Emily Parker's life? I need to freeze everything, Emily said. We can flag the account, but since it is a joint account, your husband may still have certain access unless legal restrictions are placed. Of course, Mark had thought of everything. After the call, Emily drove to a motel near the interstate because she could not think of anywhere else to go. The clerk barely looked at her as he handed over the key card. Her reflection in the lobby window startled her. Wet hair, red cheek, eyes too wide. A woman who looked guilty because someone had designed the night to make her look that way. The room smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. Emily locked the door, latched the chain, and sat on the edge of the bed. For several minutes, she did nothing. Then she opened her phone and searched for the blue dress. She had planned to wear it to a work dinner next month. It had been hanging in her closet last week. She remembered because she had moved it aside while looking for a blazer. Now she couldn't check the closet. She couldn't check anything. Her life was inside a house she could no longer enter. Emily opened her gallery and found a photo from 2 years earlier, her and Mark at a summer fundraiser. She was wearing the blue dress. Mark stood beside her, his arm around her waist, smiling like a man proud of his wife. She zoomed in on her own face. The woman in the video had worn that dress, walked like her, smiled with her mouth, but she had not been Emily. Emily knew that. Why did knowing feel so useless? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it until the screen nearly went dark. Then she answered. For a moment, there was only breathing. Hello? Emily said. A woman laughed softly. Emily's skin prickled. The voice was unfamiliar, low and smooth, with something amused underneath. You should stop trying so hard, Samantine, the woman said. Emily stood so quickly the bed frame creaked. Who is this? You already know. No, I don't. You saw me tonight? Emily's hand tightened around the phone. The room seemed to shrink. You were in the video, Emily whispered. Another soft laugh. I looked good, didn't I? Emily's breath came shallow. What did Mark pay you? Pay me? The woman sounded almost offended. That's such an ugly way to describe love. Love? He chose me. Emily closed her eyes. Pain moved through her, sharp and humiliating. You're his mistress. I'm the woman he can look at without disappointment. Emily's knees weakened. She sat slowly on the bed. "What do you want?" she asked. "What everyone wants," the woman said. "To be seen, to be chosen, to stop watching someone else live the life that should have been mine." Emily went still. "What does that mean?" "It means you should sign whatever Mark gives you. Walk away while people still think you're only a cheating wife." "Only?" The woman's voice hardened slightly. "It can get much worse." Emily looked toward the motel mirror. In the dim yellow light, her own reflection looked pale and strange. "Who are you?" she demanded. The woman waited long enough to make Emily feel the silence. Then she said, "Someone no one can tell apart from you." Emily felt cold spread through her body. "That's not possible." "Isn't it?" the woman asked. "Your husband thought it was possible. The hotel thought it was possible. The bank thought it was possible. His family thought it was possible." Emily pressed her fingers against her forehead. "You stole my money. I signed your name. You ruined my marriage." "No, Emily. Mark ruined your marriage. I only wore the dress." Emily stopped breathing. "The dress? What dress?" she asked, though she already knew. The woman's smile was audible. "The blue one. It was hanging in your closet. You should really lock your windows better." Emily stood again, turning instinctively toward the motel door, as if the woman might be outside. "You were in my house. I've been in your house more than once." Emily's stomach turned. The woman continued, almost dreamily. "Your bedroom is smaller than I imagined. Your perfume is boring. Your wedding photo is ugly. But your closet," she sighed, "your closet was useful." Emily's voice shook with rage. "If you come near my house again—" "Your house?" the woman interrupted. A pause. Then she said, gently, cruelly, "Are you sure it's still yours?" Emily could not answer. The woman lowered her voice. "Listen to me carefully. Stop fighting. No one will believe you. Not your husband, not his family, not your bank, not the police. Because all they have to do is look at me and see you." Emily gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles whitened. "You won't get away with this." "I already did." "What is your name?" Silence. Then the woman said, "Mark likes my name. He says it sounds better when he's not lying." Emily's heart pounded. "What is your name?" The woman laughed one last time. "Ask your husband." Then the call ended. Emily stood in the motel room with the phone still pressed to her ear, listening to dead air. For a long time, she didn't move. Then something inside her shifted. Not healed, not calm. Something harder than fear. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she hadn't called in years. Claire Dawson. College roommate. Divorce attorney. The kind of woman who could turn a whisper into a subpoena and a lie into a confession. Emily hesitated only once before calling. Claire answered sleepily on the third ring. "Emily?" Emily tried to speak, but at first no words came. Then she looked at herself in the mirror, at her own face, the face someone had worn like a mask. "Claire," she said, her voice breaking and sharpening at the same time. "I need a lawyer." A pause. Claire's voice changed instantly. "What happened?" Emily looked down at the photo still open on her phone. Her in the blue dress, Mark beside her, his hand around her waist. She zoomed in, not on herself this time, but on Mark. His smile, his perfect practice smile. "My husband replaced me," Emily said, "with a woman wearing my face." Outside, rain continued to strike the motel window. Inside, Emily Parker sat alone in a room that was not hers, locked out of a life someone else had stepped into. And for the first time that night, beneath the shock, beneath the humiliation, beneath the grief, one thought became clear. Mark had chosen the wrong woman to destroy. Claire Dawson arrived at the motel 40 minutes after Emily called her. She did not ask questions at first. That was one of the things Emily had always loved about Claire in college. Other people rushed toward panic with noise, sympathy, and useless comfort. Claire moved like a surgeon. Calm first, questions later. Cut, only where necessary. She walked into the motel room wearing black slacks, a gray coat, and the expression of someone who had been woken from sleep but had already forgiven the inconvenience because the emergency was real. The moment she saw Emily's face, that expression hardened. "Who hit you?" Emily touched her cheek without thinking. Margaret's slap had left a faint red mark. It was less painful now, but somehow more humiliating. Proof that the night had happened. Proof that she had stood in front of Mark's family and let them look at her like filth. "My mother-in-law," Emily said. Claire set her bag on the table. "Good. We'll remember that." Emily almost laughed. Instead, she sank onto the edge of the bed. Claire looked around the room. The damp coat draped over the chair. Emily's purse spilled open. Her phone on the table. The motel carpet still wet where she had stood after coming in from the rain. "Start at the beginning," Claire said. Emily did. She told her about the dinner at Margaret's house, about Mark standing up with that rehearsed pain in his eyes, about the video, the hotel hallway, the woman in the blue dress, the receipt, the text messages, the withdrawal authorization, the signature that looked like hers but wasn't hers. She told Claire about being locked out of her own house. She told her about the bank account. She told her about the call. Claire listened without interrupting except to ask precise questions. "What time was the hotel video?" 10:43 p.m. "Where were you?" "At home, working." "Can anyone verify that?" Emily's throat tightened. "Mark came home late. He saw me." Claire's mouth flattened. "So, the only person who can verify your alibi is the man accusing you?" Emily nodded. "Phone missing when?" "Last Thursday. I couldn't find it the whole day. Mark said he found it under the passenger seat in his car." "Was it dead?" "No. It had about 20% battery left." "Did anything seem different?" "I don't know. Maybe. I had to log back into my email, but I thought it was just an app issue." Claire wrote that down. "Bank password?" "Mark knew the joint account login, but not my personal email password." "Could he guess it?" Emily closed her eyes. "Maybe." Claire looked up. Emily hated the answer before she gave it. "It's my mother's birthday," she said. Claire made another note. "Change that immediately. Every password, banking, email, phone, cloud storage, everything." Emily reached for her phone. "Not from this phone," Claire said. Emily froze. Claire's gaze was sharp. "If someone had access to it, assume it's compromised until we know otherwise." The word compromised made Emily's stomach twist. It made her life sound like a hacked account. But that was exactly how it felt. Someone had entered her marriage, her bank, her closet, her face. Claire sat across from her. "Emily," she said slowly, "what you're describing sounds insane." Emily flinched. "But," Claire continued, "insane does not mean impossible." Emily looked at her. Claire leaned back. "A woman who looks like you appears on camera. Your phone disappeared long enough for someone to copy messages or access accounts. A dress from your closet was used. Your husband presented everything in front of witnesses instead of bringing it to you privately. He already had documents prepared. He locked you out before you had a chance to collect evidence. That is not the behavior of a devastated husband. That is the behavior of someone controlling a narrative." Emily felt something unclench in her chest. Not relief, not yet, but recognition. Someone believed the shape of the trap. Claire opened her laptop. "We need to move fast. First, we preserve what we can. Screenshots, bank records, call logs, dates, anything that shows where you were. Second, we do not contact Mark except in writing. Third, you do not go to the house alone. Fourth, if police call, you say nothing without me." "Police?" Emily asked. Claire looked at her for a moment too long. "If Mark is willing to frame you in front of his family, he may be willing to frame you officially." Emily looked toward the mirror on the wall. The woman staring back at her looked exhausted, wet-haired, pale. She looked like someone already guilty in other people's minds. "What if no one believes me?" she whispered. Claire closed the laptop halfway. "Then we give them something stronger than belief." By morning, Emily had slept less than an hour. She borrowed Claire's spare laptop and changed every password she could remember. Her personal email had 2 unfamiliar login alerts from the previous week. One from downtown West Haven, one from a device she didn't recognize. Claire made her screenshot everything. At 8:12 a.m., Mark emailed her. Subject: divorce proceedings. No greeting. "Emily, Attached are the preliminary dissolution documents. Given your misconduct, financial irregularities, and recent instability, I believe it is in both our interests to resolve this quickly and privately. My attorney is prepared to move forward. If you cooperate, I will consider not pursuing criminal action regarding the unauthorized withdrawal from our joint savings. Do not attempt to enter the house without written permission. Daniel will coordinate the return of essential belongings. Mark. Emily read it twice. Recent instability, unauthorized withdrawal, criminal action. Every phrase was a brick placed carefully in a wall meant to seal her in. Claire read over her shoulder. He's building a record, Claire said. He's lying. Yes, but he's lying in legal language. Emily's hands shook. What do I say? Nothing emotional. Claire took the laptop and typed. Mark, I deny all allegations of infidelity, financial misconduct, or instability. I did not authorize the withdrawal from the joint account, did not appear at the Alderbrook Hotel on the date alleged, and did not send the messages you referenced. All further communication should go through counsel. Emily Parker. Claire looked at Emily. Send? Emily nodded. The moment she clicked send, she felt as if she had stepped onto a battlefield she had never agreed to enter. 2 hours later, Mark's attorney sent a formal notice requesting that Emily sign a temporary agreement granting Mark exclusive use of the marital home and control over remaining shared assets pending divorce proceedings. Attached was a draft settlement. Emily stared at the section marked Adultery and Dissipation of Marital Assets. It said she admitted to an extramarital affair. It said she withdrew joint funds. It said she waived claim to the house. It said she agreed to leave Mark harmless from all financial damage resulting from her conduct. It was not a divorce agreement. It was a confession. Claire's face turned cold as she read it. He wants you to sign your own execution. Emily swallowed. And if I don't? Claire looked at the email header again. Then he escalates. Emily did not have to wait long to learn what escalation looked like. At noon, her phone rang. It was her boss, Peter Langford. Emily stepped outside the motel room because the walls suddenly felt too close. Peter, she said, trying to sound normal. There was a pause on the line. Emily, are you somewhere private? Her stomach dropped. Yes. I need to inform you that we received materials this morning concerning you. What materials? Another pause. A video. Some banking documents, allegations of financial misconduct. Emily gripped the railing outside the motel room. Cars hissed past on the wet road below. Peter, whatever you received, it's false. I hope so, he said, and the sadness in his voice nearly broke her. I really do. You've been one of the most reliable people in this company. Then you know I wouldn't do this. I know what I want to believe. But because your position involves client funds, we have to treat this seriously. Emily closed her eyes. No, she whispered. Effective immediately, you're being placed on administrative leave pending internal review. Peter, please, someone is framing me. I'm not saying you did anything, but until we know more, your access to company systems will be suspended. Her knees weakened, her job, her reputation, her career. Mark had not only accused her in his mother's dining room, he had sent the poison ahead of her into every room she might try to enter. Who sent it? Emily asked. It came anonymously. Of course it did. But the documents reference your husband's claims, Peter added quietly. Emily, if there is anything I should know, anything that could affect our clients, I didn't steal anything. I hope that's true. The call ended with Peter promising HR would be in touch. Emily stood outside the motel room for several minutes afterward, the phone still in her hand. When she went back inside, Claire looked up and knew. Work? She asked. Emily nodded. Suspended. Claire swore under her breath. Emily sat down slowly. He sent the video to my company. He or someone working with him. Everyone is going to see it. Claire didn't deny it. That was worse. By evening, the first messages arrived. A former coworker. Emily, I don't want to pry, but is everything okay? A neighbor. I saw you outside last night. I'm sorry about whatever is going on. A woman from Mark's family. You should be ashamed. Then came the message from Emily's aunt, Susan. Honey, please call me. I saw something Mark sent. I'm worried about you. Emily stared at the words until they blurred. She called. Aunt Susan answered immediately. Emily? Aunt Sue, it's not true. I want to believe that. Emily squeezed her eyes shut. Then believe me. I'm trying, but sweetheart, the video… It isn't me. The woman looks exactly like you. I know. And Mark said you've been acting strange. That money is missing. He said your phone messages… Mark is lying. Aunt Susan went quiet. Emily could hear the hesitation. It cut deeper than Margaret's slap. Do you think I'm lying? Emily asked. No, I think… Susan sighed shakily. I think maybe something happened and you're scared. Emily stood. What does that mean? It means grief can do strange things. Stress can do strange things. After the miscarriage, you were so depressed and maybe… No, maybe there are things you don't remember clearly. Emily felt all the air leave her body. You think I went to a hotel with another man, stole my own money, and forgot? I'm saying I'm worried about you. No, Emily said. You're saying Mark has made me sound crazy, and you're deciding it's easier to believe that than to believe someone is destroying my life. Susan began to cry. Emily, please don't twist my words. Emily almost laughed. Everyone kept saying that to her. Don't make this worse. Don't raise your voice. Don't twist my words. Don't sound unstable. Every demand was the same. Be quiet while we bury you. I have to go, Emily said. Emily, she hung up. For a moment, rage held her upright. Then it broke, and she sat on the floor between the bed and the table, pressing her fists against her eyes, trying not to make a sound. Claire did not touch her. She simply sat beside her on the floor and said, Let it hurt for 5 minutes, then we work. Emily wanted to hate her for that. Instead, 5 minutes later, she wiped her face and stood. The next day, Margaret Reynolds summoned her. The message came through Daniel. Mom wants everyone to sit down and talk. She says, if you're willing to apologize and sign, this doesn't have to get uglier. Emily read it aloud to Claire. Claire's answer was immediate. No, I should go. Absolutely not. If I don't, they'll say I'm hiding. They already say you're guilty. Emily paced the motel room. Claire, if Margaret is turning everyone against me, I need to face them. Claire studied her. Then I'm coming. No, that will make it worse. It already is worse. In the end, Claire agreed to wait nearby, parked down the street, with her phone on and the call open in Emily's pocket. Do not agree to anything, Claire said. Do not sign anything. Do not let them separate you from your phone. If Mark threatens you, say clearly, I want all communication in writing. Emily nodded. Margaret's house looked exactly the same as it had 2 nights earlier. Same polished windows, same trimmed hedges, same porch light. But Emily felt as if she were walking toward a courthouse. Daniel opened the door. His face was tight with guilt. He said softly. Don't, she replied. He stepped back. The living room was full. Margaret sat in the armchair like a queen awaiting judgment. Mark stood near the fireplace. Rebecca sat beside Daniel, pale and uncomfortable. Elise was there again. So were 2 cousins, an uncle, and an older family friend Emily barely knew. It was not a conversation. It was an audience. On the coffee table lay a stack of papers. Emily stopped just inside the room. What is this? Margaret folded her hands. This is your opportunity to show a little dignity. Mark looked down as if embarrassed on her behalf. Emily looked at the papers. Are those the divorce documents? A simple acknowledgement, Margaret said. An apology, an agreement to stop dragging this family through filth. Emily almost smiled. The old Emily might have trembled. The old Emily might have tried to explain herself gently, carefully, politely enough to be allowed back into the circle. That woman had been locked out in the rain. I'm not signing anything. Margaret's mouth tightened. Then why are you here? To say in front of everyone that the woman in that video is not me. Elise sighed. Emily, dear, don't dear me. Mark stepped forward. You're making this painful for everyone. No? You did that? His eyes sharpened. Emily turned to Margaret. Play the video again. The room went still. Margaret blinked. What? You heard me. Play it again. Mark said. Emily, this is unnecessary. No, Mark. You wanted an audience. Let's give them a show. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Margaret, however, mistook Emily's demand for desperation. She grabbed the remote and turned on the television. The video played again. The hotel hallway. The man in the gray jacket. The woman in the blue dress. Emily forced herself to watch this time. Not with horror, with focus. She watched the woman's shoulders, the way she turned her head, the way she reached into her small clutch. Then it happened. The woman took out the key card and swiped it against the lock with her left hand. Emily said, "Pause." Margaret paused. Emily stepped closer to the screen. Her pulse hammered, but her voice stayed steady. "I'm right-handed." Margaret stared at her. The woman in that video uses her left hand. Not awkwardly, naturally. She reaches with it, holds the card with it, opens the door with it. No one spoke. Emily turned. "Daniel, how many times have you seen me write birthday cards at this house? Which hand do I use?" Daniel looked at Mark. Emily's voice sharpened. "Don't look at him. Look at me." Daniel swallowed. "You're right." "Rebecca?" Rebecca's eyes flicked to the television. "Right." Margaret scoffed. "People can use both hands." "Not like that," Emily said. Mark gave a soft, sad laugh. "Emily, this is your defense? That you used the wrong hand?" "No," Emily said. "This is the first crack." His expression darkened. Margaret stood. "Enough! You think one hand changes what we saw? I think you wanted to believe it before you saw anything." The words struck the room. Margaret's face flushed. "You ungrateful little—" Emily stepped back before Margaret could come near her. "I am not signing," she said. "I am not apologizing. And from now on, you can speak to my lawyer." Mark's head lifted. "Lawyer?" he asked. There it was again, that flicker. Not fear exactly. Calculation. Emily held his gaze. "Claire Dawson." For one brief second, Mark's jaw tightened. Then he smiled. "Good. You're going to need one." Emily turned and left before anyone could stop her. Outside, she got into her car with shaking hands. Claire was parked half a block away. The call was still connected. "You did well," Claire said through the speaker. Emily exhaled. "Did you hear the part about the hand?" "I heard. Is it enough?" "No," Claire said. "But it's something." Something? After 2 days of having nothing but disbelief thrown at her, something felt almost like oxygen. Claire moved quickly after that. By Friday morning, she had filed preservation letters with the hotel, the bank, and Mark's attorney demanding that all video, transaction records, device logs, and communications be retained. She also made a formal request for the bank's security images. Not the full footage yet. That would take legal pressure, but still photographs from the transaction were possible. They arrived that afternoon. Claire opened them in her office. Emily sat across from her, hands clasped so tightly her fingers hurt. Claire's office was small but elegant, with shelves of legal books, a framed diploma, and a window overlooking downtown West Haven. Outside, people walked with coffee cups and umbrellas, living normal lives that seemed impossibly far away. Claire turned her monitor toward Emily. "Ready?" "No." Claire opened the first image anyway. It showed a woman at the counter of West Haven National Bank. Emily stopped breathing. Again, the same face. Her face. The woman wore dark sunglasses pushed onto her head. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun. She wore a beige coat Emily did not own. Claire zoomed in. "She's signing," Claire said. The woman's left hand held the pen. Emily leaned closer. "Left-handed?" "Yes." Claire zoomed further. The signature was visible at the bottom of the form. Emily Parker. Almost perfect. But the final stroke pulled left instead of right. Emily had signed her name thousands of times. She knew the rhythm of it. This version copied the shape, but not the instinct. "It's like someone drawing my signature," Emily whispered. "Not writing it." Claire nodded. "That distinction matters." She opened the second image. The woman turned slightly toward the camera. Emily's skin prickled. Claire didn't speak at first. She zoomed in near the woman's collar. Around the woman's neck was a thin gold chain. A pendant hung at the center. The letter V. Emily stared at it. I don't own that. I know, Claire said. Emily frowned. But I've seen it. Where? I don't know. Emily pressed her hands to her temples. Somewhere. Recently. Claire saved the image, then printed a copy. We need to find out who she is. She called me. Did she say a name? No. Any accent? Background noise? Emily thought back. The voice in the motel room. Smooth, amused, cruel. No accent. Maybe traffic, I'm not sure. Did she say anything specific? Emily hesitated. Shame rose in her throat. She said Mark chose her. She said she wore my dress. Emily forced herself to continue. She said she had been in my house more than once. Claire's expression turned dangerous. Then she didn't just resemble you by chance. She had access. She studied you. Emily looked at the bank photo again. The woman looked so much like her that Emily felt sick. But now, with the image frozen, she saw tiny wrongnesses. The mouth was a little sharper, the chin slightly different, the expression colder. Emily had never looked at a bank teller like that, as if the whole world owed her something. Claire tapped the pendant with her pen. V, she said. Emily whispered. V for what? They found the first clue through the money. Claire had a forensic accountant she used in complicated divorce cases, but Emily insisted on looking too. Numbers were the one language Mark had not taken from her. While Claire reviewed filings and legal strategy, Emily sat in the office with spreadsheets, transaction histories, and whatever fragments the bank would provide. The money had moved in pieces. First, from the joint account into a cashier's check and 2 wires, then through an account belonging to a small consulting company registered in Delaware. Emily recognized the pattern immediately. Layering. Someone had tried to obscure the trail without making it look too sophisticated. Not clean enough for a professional criminal, too clean for an impulsive spouse. A desperate man with financial knowledge. Mark. Emily followed the company registration until she found the name, VC Holdings LLC. Her heart began to pound. Claire, she called. Claire came in from the conference room. What? Emily pointed to the screen. VC. Claire leaned over her shoulder. Vanessa? Emily said, though she didn't know why the name came to her. It didn't. Not really. It was just a shape forming around the letter. Claire's gaze sharpened. Maybe. Or a company meant to point somewhere else. No, the necklace. The V. Claire was silent for a moment. Then she said, We need Mark's old photos. Emily looked at her. People hide affairs badly, Claire said. Especially men who think they're smarter than everyone. Emily still had access to an old shared cloud album from years ago. Mark had never bothered to remove her from it. Most of it contained vacations, family events, charity dinners, work functions. Thousands of images from a life that now felt like evidence from a crime scene. For hours, Emily searched. Mark at a golf outing. Mark at a conference. Mark at Daniel's birthday. Mark with clients. Mark smiling beside Emily. Mark smiling without her. The longer she looked, the more she noticed how often he stood slightly apart from her in recent photos. How his hand rested on her shoulder instead of her waist. How his smile became public, but not private. Then she found a folder marked West Haven Partners Holiday Mixer. 2 years old. She clicked through the images. People in suits. Wine glasses. A bar with blue lighting. Mark laughing with a group of men Emily didn't recognize. Then one photo loaded slowly. Mark sat in a corner booth at a bar. Not with coworkers. With a woman. The photo was badly framed, as if taken accidentally by someone capturing the room. Mark was turned 3/4 toward the woman, his posture intimate. His hand rested near hers on the table. The woman's face was partly hidden by her hair, but around her neck was a thin gold chain, a V-shaped pendant. Emily stopped moving. Claire came to stand behind her. Zoom in, Claire said. Emily did. The image blurred, then sharpened slightly. The woman's cheekbone appeared first, then the line of her jaw, then half her mouth. Emily felt the room tilt. Claire inhaled sharply. Even with half her face hidden, the resemblance was unmistakable. It was like looking at a reflection that had learned to hate her. Emily's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "That's her," she whispered. Claire's voice was quiet, and Mark knew her. Emily zoomed in further. Mark's face in the photo was not the face of a betrayed husband. It was not wounded, shocked, or deceived. He looked pleased. He looked hungry. He looked like a man who had found a weapon and mistaken it for a gift. Emily stared at the woman's half-hidden face until her own reflection appeared faintly on the dark edge of the monitor, overlapping with the image. For a moment, there were three of them. Emily, the woman in the photo, the woman in the video. One life, two faces, one lie. Claire saved the photo, copied it to a secure folder, and printed it. Emily kept staring at the screen. "What now?" she asked. Claire placed the printed bank photo beside the printed bar photo. In one, the woman signed Emily's name. In the other, Mark sat beside her. In both, the V pendant gleamed at her throat. "Now," Claire said, "we find out who Vanessa is." Emily looked at the frozen image of Mark and the woman who wore her face. Outside Claire's office, downtown traffic moved beneath a gray afternoon sky. Somewhere, Mark was probably telling another lie calmly. Somewhere, Margaret was probably repeating it. Somewhere, the woman with the V around her neck was living freely after stepping into Emily's clothes, Emily's bank, Emily's marriage. But for the first time since the video had played in Margaret's dining room, Emily had proof that pointed away from her and toward someone else. Not enough to save her. Not yet, but enough to hunt. Emily touched the photo with one trembling finger. "Mark knows her," she said. Claire nodded. Emily's voice dropped. "He didn't discover an affair. He created one." The words filled the room and became real. Mark was not a victim. He was the architect. And somewhere behind him was a woman with Emily's face, a left-handed signature, and a gold letter V resting against her throat like a confession. The first thing Emily learned about the necklace was that it was not expensive. That almost made it worse. If the pendant had been a diamond, something custom-made in a private showroom, something hidden behind velvet ropes and security glass, then at least it would have felt distant from her life. Something belonging to Mark's world, Margaret's world, a world of polished surfaces and quiet cruelty. But the V-shaped pendant came from a small boutique on Hawthorne Street, 12 minutes from Emily's office, a place she had walked past dozens of times. Claire found it by searching image results late into the night. The pendant was distinctive enough to trace. Thin gold, slightly asymmetrical, one side of the V longer than the other, with a tiny green stone set into the corner. "Not real emerald," the boutique owner later explained. "Green quartz." "People like the look of it," the owner said. "Personal without being too flashy." Her name was Nina Alvarez, and she stood behind a glass counter lined with rings, earrings, and delicate chains. She was in her 40s, with dark curls pinned behind her ears, and a kind face that became increasingly cautious as Claire explained that they were trying to identify a woman connected to a financial fraud investigation. Claire did not say affair. She did not say mistress. She did not say woman wearing my client's face. That part was still too strange to hand to a stranger over a jewelry counter. Nina looked at the printed bank photo first. Then she looked at Emily, then back at the photo. The color left her face. "Oh," Nina said. Emily felt that single syllable move through her like a draft. "You recognize her?" Claire asked. Nina hesitated. Claire placed a business card on the counter. "I'm not asking you to violate anyone's privacy without a proper request. But if this woman made a purchase here, we need to know whether there's a transaction record. My client is being accused of crimes she did not commit." Nina kept staring at Emily. "I thought it was you," she said softly. Emily's skin tightened. "What?" "When she came in. I mean, not you, obviously, but..." Nina shook her head, unsettled. "She looked like you. Almost exactly like you. I remember because it was one of those moments where you wonder if you've met someone before." Claire's expression sharpened. "When was this?" Nina turned to her tablet and began searching through sales. Emily looked around the boutique while she waited. The place smelled faintly of sandalwood and metal polish. Sunlight filtered through the front windows. Everything was ordinary. That was what disturbed her most. This nightmare had not been created in some dark alley. It had been assembled in ordinary rooms, ordinary shops, ordinary bank counters, while Emily lived her life unaware that another woman was collecting pieces of it. Here, Nina said. She turned the tablet toward Claire. A receipt, pendant, gold 5 necklace with green quartz. Date? 5 weeks earlier. Payment? Credit card. Customer name? Vanessa Cole. Emily read the name once, then again. Vanessa Cole. The name had weight. It felt less like a discovery than a door opening somewhere in the dark. Do you have a phone number? Claire asked. Nina hesitated again. Claire's voice remained calm. We can subpoena it, but if this woman is impersonating my client, time matters. Nina looked at Emily. Maybe it was the bruise fading on her cheek. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was simply the horror of looking into one woman's face while remembering another who wore it like a borrowed coat. She gave an email for the receipt, Nina said finally. She wrote it down. Vanessa.cole91@gmail.com. Emily stared at the numbers. 91. Something about them tugged at her, faint and unpleasant, like a forgotten smell. Outside the boutique, Claire stopped at the curb and looked at the email. We have a name, she said. Emily watched cars pass. Now what? Now we find everything connected to it. That night, Vanessa Cole became a ghost with edges. Claire's investigator found very little at first. No public social media under her full name, no obvious employment history, no property records in West Haven. But then, Emily, driven by the kind of obsession that made sleep impossible, searched variations of the email, old usernames, forgotten platforms, archive profiles, image caches. Vanessa Cole, V. Cole, Nessa C., VC91. At 2:17 a.m., Emily found her, not on Instagram or Facebook, but on an old photography site that looked abandoned. The account had not been updated in 7 years. There were only 11 photos. Most were of streets, rain on windows, train stations, motel signs, empty playgrounds. The kind of images taken by someone who had spent a life passing through places without belonging to them. Then Emily clicked the 9th photo. A woman stood near a lake, turned partly away from the camera. Her hair was darker than Emily's, shorter too, cut bluntly above the shoulders. She wore a black coat and looked over her shoulder as if someone had called her name. Emily's breath stopped. It was like looking at herself in a dream where everything had gone wrong. The woman's cheekbones were almost identical. Her mouth, similar. Her eyes, nearly the same shape, though there was a hardness in them Emily did not recognize in herself. Her face was thinner, her expression colder. But the resemblance was not a trick of bad video or grainy bank footage. It was real. Emily pushed back from the desk so fast the chair hit the wall. Claire, who had been sleeping on the office couch after another long night of legal filings, sat up immediately. What? Emily pointed at the screen. Claire came over, still half asleep, then froze. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Claire said, My God. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. That's her. Claire leaned closer. This photo is old. She looked less like you then. Emily swallowed. What do you mean? I mean... Claire clicked back to the bank photo, then to the hotel still, then to the old lake picture. Her hair changed, brows changed, makeup changed. She filled out differently, or made herself look like she did. Emily understood before Claire finished. She made herself look like me. Claire's face was grim. Not completely. You already resembled each other, but yes. She sharpened the resemblance, hair color, styling, clothes, maybe makeup contouring. She didn't just take advantage of looking like you. She studied you. Emily sat back down slowly. On the screen, Vanessa Cole looked out from 7 years ago with a face that could have been Emily's shadow. Emily thought of the voice on the phone. I've been in your house more than once. She thought of the blue dress, the bank, the signature. She thought of someone standing in her closet, choosing her clothes, touching her things, learning how to become her. Her stomach turned. Claire saved the images. We need her current address. They got it through VC Holdings. The company had used a registered agent in Delaware, but one document contained a forwarding address in West Haven, an apartment complex near the industrial side of town, where old warehouses had been converted into lofts with cheap paint and high rent. Mark told Emily by email that same afternoon that he would be out of town for 2 days. Business trip, he wrote. Claire read the email and said, "He's lying." Emily said, "I know. You are not following him alone. I'm not asking permission." Claire looked at her across the desk. The two women stared at each other in silence. Finally, Claire said, "Then I'm driving." They parked across from Mark's office at 6:40 p.m. West Haven Financial Partners occupied the 4th and 5th floors of a glass building downtown. Mark came out at 7:12 wearing a charcoal coat, carrying his leather briefcase, looking every inch the exhausted professional husband wronged by his unstable wife. Emily watched from Claire's passenger seat. Once, seeing him like this would have made her feel safe. Mark had always seemed solid to her, practical, measured. A man who knew how to make dinner reservations, refinance mortgages, shake hands with bankers, charm old women, reassure waiters, fix problems. Now she saw the same qualities differently. He had not been stable. He had been rehearsed. Mark got into his car and drove east, not toward the airport, not toward the highway, toward the warehouse district. Claire followed 2 cars behind, careful and silent. The apartment building sat between a coffee roaster and an old furniture warehouse. Red brick, tall windows, a security gate that looked more decorative than useful. Mark parked in the side lot. Emily's pulse climbed. He got out, checked his phone, and looked around once before entering the building. "Stay here," Claire said. "No. Emily, I need to see." Claire exhaled sharply, then handed her a baseball cap from the back seat. "Put this on. Keep your head down. Don't get close." They crossed the street separately. Claire pretended to take a phone call near the coffee roaster. Emily moved along the opposite sidewalk, stopping near a dark storefront with a view of the apartment entrance. 7 minutes passed. Then a woman appeared at a 3rd-floor window. Emily knew before the woman stepped fully into view. Vanessa. Her hair was the same shade as Emily's now. Same length, too, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She wore a white sweater that looked painfully familiar. Emily stared. That was her sweater, or one exactly like it. Mark appeared behind Vanessa and wrapped his arms around her waist. Emily felt the world narrow. Vanessa turned her face toward him. Mark kissed her neck. She laughed soundlessly behind the glass. Emily's hand went to the wall to steady herself. There it was. Not suspicion, not theory, not shadows. Mark was with her. Mark had known her. Mark had touched the woman who stole Emily's name, then come home and stood beside Emily at dinners, kissed her forehead, slept in their bed, watched her drink coffee from chipped mugs, watched her mourn the child they lost, watched her trust him. And all that time, somewhere, Vanessa had been waiting. Emily lifted her phone and took pictures through the window. 1, 2, 3. Mark turned away from the window. Vanessa did not. Her eyes shifted downward. Across the street, straight to Emily. Emily froze. Vanessa's smile faded. Then slowly, Vanessa smiled again. Not with surprise, with recognition. She raised one hand and touched 2 fingers to her own cheek, mirroring the place where Margaret had slapped Emily. Emily's blood went cold. "She sees me," Emily whispered into the phone. Claire, still on the call, said sharply, "Walk away, now!" But Emily couldn't move. The building door opened 3 minutes later. Vanessa stepped outside alone. Up close, the resemblance was worse. The hotel camera had flattened her. The bank photo had frozen her. The old lake picture had softened her through time. But standing under the street lamp, walking toward Emily with Emily's hair and Emily's mouth and a borrowed version of Emily's style, Vanessa was not merely similar. She was an accusation made flesh. Emily felt as if her own reflection had climbed out of a mirror and learned to hate her. Vanessa stopped 3 feet away. Neither woman spoke. Claire started walking toward them from across the street, but Emily lifted one hand slightly, telling her to wait. Vanessa's eyes moved over Emily's face. "So," Vanessa said. "The original." Emily's throat tightened. "Vanessa Cole." A flicker crossed Vanessa's face. Pleasure, perhaps, or irritation that Emily had found the name. "Mark said you were smart," Vanessa said. "He also said you were soft." Emily's hands curled. "Why are you doing this?" Vanessa tilted her head. The movement was almost like Emily's. Almost. "Because I can." "No, that's not why." Vanessa's smile sharpened. "You want a tragic explanation? Something that lets you feel superior because you were wronged by a damaged woman? You stole my life." Vanessa stepped closer. "No, Emily, I borrowed it. There's a difference. You signed my name. You left it everywhere. You wore my clothes. They fit. You slept with my husband." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "Your husband came to me." The words landed like a slap, but Emily refused to flinch. "He used you," Emily said. Vanessa laughed. "That's what women say when men choose someone else. He is going to destroy you too." For the first time, Vanessa's smile thinned. Emily saw the crack and pushed. "Do you think Mark loves you? Do you think when this is over, he'll marry you? Bring you to Margaret's house? Let you sit in my chair at Sunday dinner?" Vanessa's face hardened. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you broke into my house." Vanessa leaned closer. Her perfume was sweet and sharp, a scent Emily recognized from her own bedroom after the night she found the unfamiliar bottle. "I didn't break in," Vanessa whispered. "I was invited." Emily felt bile rise in her throat. Vanessa continued, "Your bed is too soft. Your closet is too organized. Your wedding photo looks fake. But your life," she looked Emily up and down, "your life was easier to step into than I expected." Emily wanted to hit her. Instead, she said, "You're not me." Vanessa's eyes darkened. "No," she said, "I'm the version he wanted." The street seemed to hum around them. Emily looked at the woman wearing her face and saw something beneath the cruelty. Not regret, not fear, hunger. Vanessa did not only want Mark. She wanted proof. Proof that she could be chosen. Proof that she could replace what had rejected her. Proof that Emily Parker was not special, not loved, not irreplaceable. Claire reached them then. "That's enough," Claire said. Vanessa glanced at Claire. "The lawyer?" Claire smiled without warmth. "The witness." Vanessa's gaze flicked to Emily's phone. "Still trying to prove you exist?" Emily's voice was low. "I don't need to prove I exist." Vanessa stepped back. "Then why is everyone looking at me and seeing you?" She turned and walked back into the building. Emily stood shaking on the sidewalk. Claire took her arm. "We have to go." "Did you record that?" Claire lifted her phone. "All of it." But even that did not feel like victory, because 2 days later, Vanessa became Emily again. This time, she did it in daylight. A woman who looked like Emily walked into the coffee shop near Emily's office, where the staff knew her by name. She ordered whiskey in her coffee at 10 in the morning, laughed too loudly, and told the barista that marriage was just a prettier kind of prison. By noon, 3 people had texted Emily asking if she was okay. At 2 p.m., Vanessa appeared outside Emily's old office building, wearing sunglasses and Emily's beige trench coat. She spoke briefly to a security guard, then left. By 2:30, HR had emailed Emily asking her not to come onto company property during the investigation. At 5 p.m., Aunt Susan called. "I just saw you," Susan said, breathless. Emily stood in Claire's office, phone pressed to her ear. "No, you didn't. You were outside St. Mary's on Lowell Street. You looked right at me. I've been with Claire all day. She was wearing your green scarf." Emily closed her eyes. Vanessa was not only creating evidence, she was poisoning memory. She was making people doubt their own eyes, then doubt Emily when she contradicted them. Claire began building an alibi log for every hour of every day: receipts, office camera, parking timestamps, call records, statements from Claire's receptionist. They were no longer only defending against what had happened, they were defending against what Vanessa might do next. That night, Emily returned to the motel and found an envelope slipped under the door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single photograph: Emily's mother, young and smiling faintly, standing outside the old yellow house where Emily had grown up. In her arms was a baby, not Emily. Emily knew because her mother looked too young, because the photo was dated 2 years before Emily's birth, because on the back, in her mother's handwriting, were 4 words: Vanessa, 1991. Forgive me. The room blurred. Emily sat on the bed slowly, the photo trembling in her hands. Her mother had been dead for 6 years. Breast cancer. After 8 months of chemo and brave smiles that fooled no one, Emily had packed up most of her things herself: clothes, recipe cards, books, a little box of jewelry. She had never seen this photograph, never heard the name Vanessa, never been told there was a baby before her. She called Claire. Then she drove to her mother's old house. It belonged now to Aunt Susan, who had kept it mostly untouched. Susan met Emily at the door with red eyes and a guilty face. The moment Emily showed her the photograph, Susan covered her mouth. "You knew," Emily said. Susan began to cry. Emily stepped inside. "You knew. I didn't know it was the same woman. But you knew there was a Vanessa." Susan looked towards the hallway as if the old house itself might answer. "Your mother made me promise." "Promise what?" "That I wouldn't tell you unless—" Susan shook her head. "Unless it became necessary." Emily laughed once, hollow. "I think we're there." Susan led her to the attic. Behind boxes of Christmas ornaments and old blankets stood a cedar chest Emily remembered from childhood. Her mother had always kept it locked. Emily had assumed it held tax papers, maybe old letters from her father. Ordinary adult secrets. Susan took a key from an envelope taped beneath the lid of a hat box. Inside the chest were photographs, hospital documents, letters that had never been mailed, and a small pink hospital bracelet. "Baby girl Cole." Emily picked it up with shaking fingers. Cole, her mother's maiden name. Susan sat on an old trunk. "Before your father, your mother was with a man named Robert Hale. He was older, married, though she didn't know at first. When she got pregnant, her parents were furious. They said she had ruined herself." Emily could barely breathe. "She wanted to keep the baby," Susan continued, "but she was 20. No money, no support. Robert disappeared. Your grandparents pushed her into adoption. They told her it was the only way the child would have a decent life." "Vanessa?" Emily whispered. Susan nodded. "Your mother named her Vanessa before they took her. She never stopped thinking about her. After she married your father and had you, she tried to find her, but the adoption was closed. Records sealed. She hit walls everywhere." Emily looked at the photograph again. Her mother holding the baby. Her mother's smile was not joy. It was grief trying to look like love for one last picture. "Why didn't she tell me?" "She was ashamed," Susan said, "and scared. She thought you'd hate her." Emily felt anger rise, then collapse under the weight of something sadder. "My mother had another daughter." "Yes, and that daughter is trying to destroy me." Susan flinched. Emily looked through the papers until she found another name scribbled in the margins of a hospital form. Linda Foster. "Who is Linda?" Susan wiped her face. "She was a nurse, your mother's friend. She was there when Vanessa was born." Linda Foster lived 40 minutes away in a small blue house near a lake. She was 70 now, with silver hair, careful hands, and the haunted expression of someone who had been waiting years for a doorbell she dreaded. When she opened the door and saw Emily, she whispered, "You look like both of them." Emily's chest tightened. "Both?" Linda stepped aside and let her in. Claire came too. This time, Emily insisted. She could not hold another secret alone. Linda made tea, none of them drank. "Yes," Linda said, looking at the old photograph. "Your mother had a daughter before you, Vanessa. She was born in September of 1991. Your mother held her for 16 minutes before they took her away. Emily looked down. 16 minutes. A whole life reduced to less time than a commute. She wanted her back, Linda continued. By the time she was strong enough to try, it was too late. Closed adoption, then records changed, the family moved. Your mother searched for years. Did Vanessa ever find her? Emily asked. Linda's eyes filled. Yes. Emily went still. When? 7 years ago? Emily's mind raced. 7 years ago. Her mother had been sick then. Not yet diagnosed, but tired often, losing weight, hiding pain. She came here first, Linda said. Vanessa had found my name through old records. She asked about her birth mother. I told her your mother's name. I told her where she lived. I thought... Linda's voice broke. I thought I was helping. Emily gripped the arm of the chair. Did she meet my mother? No, she came too late. Emily closed her eyes. She went to the house after the funeral, Linda said. Your aunt was out. The door was unlocked because neighbors were bringing food. Vanessa went inside. Emily opened her eyes. The old photographs, the framed family pictures, birthday parties, graduation. Emily and her mother at the beach. Emily and her mother decorating Christmas cookies. Emily and her mother smiling in 100 moments Vanessa had never had. She saw me, Emily said. Linda nodded. She saw you everywhere. Silence filled the room. Claire asked, Did Vanessa say anything when she came back? Linda looked ashamed. She said your mother kept the replacement. Emily flinched. She said Emily got the childhood, the house, the birthday cakes, the mother. She said there was no justice in being the first daughter and still being the one erased. Emily's throat burned. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, Linda said. But Vanessa didn't. Or she had known and decided it did not matter. Linda stood and went to a drawer. She returned with an envelope. She wrote to your mother once after that, Linda said. The letter was returned. Your aunt had started forwarding mail, and somehow it came to me because my address was in Vanessa's old notes. Emily took the envelope. The letter inside was short. You gave me away and kept her. I hope she was worth it. There was no signature. There didn't need to be. Claire read it and placed it carefully on the table. Vanessa's motive is not just money. Emily's voice was hollow. It's me. Linda reached for her hand, but Emily pulled back without meaning to. I'm sorry, Linda said. Emily looked at the old woman. Everyone keeps being sorry after the damage is done. Linda lowered her eyes. On the drive back, Emily sat in silence while Claire drove. Rain streaked the windshield again. It seemed every important thing in Emily's life was now happening under rain, as if the sky itself had chosen the mood and refused to change it. Claire finally spoke. This explains the resemblance. Emily stared ahead. Same mother. Half-sisters can resemble each other strongly, but Vanessa enhanced it. She chose to. Emily nodded slowly. That was the part that mattered. Blood explained the face. It did not explain the cruelty. By the time they returned to Claire's office, an email was waiting from Mark's attorney, accusing Emily of continued harassment and warning that any contact with Ms. Cole would be used to support a protective order. Ms. Cole. Seeing the name in legal language made the nightmare more solid. Claire's jaw tightened. So Mark is protecting her now. Emily looked at the email. No, she said. He's protecting himself. That night, she could not sleep. She sat in the motel room with the old photograph of her mother and baby Vanessa on the bed in front of her. Beside it, she placed the bank photo, then the bar photo, then the hotel still. A baby in her mother's arms. A woman signing Emily's name. A mistress beside Mark. A stranger wearing Emily's dress. One person across time, becoming more dangerous with every image. At 11:49 p.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emily answered without speaking. For a second, there was only silence. Then Vanessa's voice came through, soft as smoke. You found Linda. Emily's blood chilled. Are you watching me? I've been watching you for years. Emily stood. You knew who I was. I knew what you were. And what is that? The daughter she kept. Emily closed her eyes. Vanessa, she said, and the name felt strange in her mouth, intimate and poisonous at once. I didn't know about you. A small laugh. That must be convenient. It's the truth. The truth, Vanessa repeated. People like you love that word. Truth, fairness, family, all the things you got to have. Emily gripped the phone. I didn't ask her to give you away. No, Vanessa said. You only benefited from it. Emily felt tears rise and hated them. Mark is using you. Vanessa's voice hardened. Mark saw me. Mark saw a weapon. Mark saw what she threw away. Emily paused. Behind Vanessa's anger, she heard something roar. A wound old enough to have become identity. What did he tell you? Emily asked. Silence. Then Vanessa said, He told me you had everything. He told me you didn't appreciate any of it. He told me your marriage was already dead. He told me you looked at him like he was ordinary. Emily swallowed. And you believed him? I believed what I saw. What did you see? I saw your house, Vanessa snapped. Your wedding pictures, your mother's handwriting on birthday cards, your name on everything. Emily's room, Emily's school awards, Emily's Christmas stocking. Emily, Emily, Emily. Her voice broke on the name, then hardened again. I had foster homes that forgot my birthday. I had people return me like furniture. I had caseworkers who changed every 6 months. I had a file instead of a family. And then I found out she kept you. Emily sat slowly on the bed. I'm sorry that happened to you, she said. Vanessa was quiet. For one moment, Emily thought the words had reached her. Then Vanessa whispered, Don't you dare pity me. I'm not. Yes, you are. You think because you cry nicely, because you say the right things, because you look wounded, that you are better than me. I think you're helping my husband destroy me. Your husband came to me because he was tired of pretending with you. Emily closed her eyes against the pain. Vanessa continued. He said you were weak. He said you wouldn't fight. He said by the time you understood what was happening, everyone would already believe the evidence. Emily's eyes opened. There it was. Mark's voice through Vanessa's mouth. The plan. What else did he say? Vanessa went silent. Emily spoke carefully. He told you there would be money, didn't he? He told you he'd leave me, that you'd get what I had, the house, the life, him. Vanessa's breathing changed. Emily had struck something true. He told you that you could replace me. Vanessa's voice came back, low and vicious. I don't need his permission. The line went dead. 5 seconds later, a message arrived. A photo. Emily opened it. It was the same image she had found in the attic. Her mother holding baby Vanessa. But this version had been cropped differently. Someone had written across it in black marker. She chose you. Then another message appeared. Mark only helped me take back what should have been mine. Emily stared at the screen until the words blurred. Claire had told her to preserve everything, so she took screenshots, saved the number, backed up the images, did all the practical things a woman did when her life was being destroyed by someone who shared her blood. Then she went to the mirror. For a long time, Emily looked at her own face, her mother's eyes, Vanessa's cheekbones, a stranger's weapon. She lifted her hair and touched the small scar behind her left ear. The scar from a childhood fall, from a day her mother had cried harder than Emily because there had been so much blood. Her mother had held her then. Her mother had chosen her then. But choice, Emily was beginning to understand, could be twisted into a knife by someone who had never felt chosen at all. She let her hair fall. Vanessa was her sister. Vanessa was Mark's mistress. Vanessa was the woman in the video. Vanessa was the left-handed signature. Vanessa was the voice on the phone. Vanessa was not a random shadow. She was a ghost from Emily's own family, sharpened by abandonment, aimed by Mark, and willing to become anything if it meant Emily became nothing. Emily turned away from the mirror and opened her laptop. She created a folder and named it Vanessa. Inside it, she placed every photo, every message, every receipt, every trace. The fear was still there. So was the grief. But beneath both, something else had begun to grow. A colder resolve. Mark had built the trap. Vanessa had worn the mask. But now, Emily knew the name of the woman behind her face. And names, Claire had told her once, could be put on subpoenas. For 3 days after Emily created the folder named Vanessa, she lived inside evidence. Photos, screenshots, bank records, call logs, emails from Mark's attorney, the old hospital bracelet with the name Baby Girl Cole. The picture of Emily's mother holding a child Emily had never known existed. The letter Vanessa had written years ago with a sentence sharp enough to cut through time. You gave me away and kept her. Emily kept everything arranged on Claire's conference table in careful rows as if organization could make horror smaller. It did not. Vanessa was no longer just the woman from the hotel video. She was no longer only Mark's mistress. She was not a random criminal with a similar face. She was blood. That was the part Emily could not file neatly into a folder. Every time she looked at Vanessa's old photograph, Emily saw pieces of their mother. The same eyes, but harder. The same jaw, but held with defiance instead of warmth. The same face Emily had seen in family albums, reflected through two daughters raised in two different worlds. One kept, one given away. Claire found Emily in the conference room late Friday night, sitting in the dark except for the glow of her laptop. You've been staring at that photo for 20 minutes, Claire said. Emily did not look up. She was a baby. Claire came in and set a paper cup of coffee beside her. Yes, my mother held her for 16 minutes. Yes, Emily swallowed. Then Vanessa spent her whole life thinking my mother chose me over her. Claire sat across from her. Emily, I know what you're going to say. Say it for me. Emily closed the laptop halfway. That her pain doesn't excuse what she did. Claire nodded. Good. Now say the rest. Emily's voice was quieter. That she may have been a victim once, but now she is choosing to destroy me. There it is. Emily leaned back, pressing both hands over her face. I hate that I feel sorry for her. That doesn't make you weak. It makes me hesitate. That could? Emily lowered her hands. Claire's expression was firm but not unkind. Vanessa's history explains why Mark could manipulate her. It explains the rage. It explains the obsession. But Emily, she had choices. She chose to break into your home. She chose to wear your clothes. She chose to sign your name. She chose to help Mark steal your money. Do not let pity make you hand her a knife twice. Emily looked at the bank photo again. Vanessa at the counter, Vanessa holding a pen in her left hand, Vanessa wearing the V pendant, Vanessa wearing Emily's face. I won't, Emily said. The next morning, Claire got permission through Mark's attorney for Emily to retrieve personal belongings from the house. It took 3 emails, 2 threats of emergency court motions, and 1 very cold phone call in which Claire reminded Mark's lawyer that locking a spouse out of the marital residence while withholding medication and work property would not look charming before a judge. Mark agreed to a 20-minute visit, supervised by Daniel. Not Mark? Emily asked. Claire smiled thinly. Apparently he's too wounded to see you. Emily understood what that meant. Mark was too smart to risk being recorded alone. Daniel met them at the house at noon. He stood on the porch with his hands in his pockets, looking like a man who wanted to apologize but knew apology was too small for what had happened. He said. Don't call me that. He flinched. Claire stepped forward. We're here for personal belongings, medication, clothing, work documents, laptop accessories, and anything belonging solely to Mrs. Parker. Daniel nodded and opened the door. Emily stepped into her own house and nearly broke. The smell hit first. Lemon cleaner, cedar wood, and underneath it, something unfamiliar. A sweet, sharp perfume that did not belong to her. Vanessa. Emily stood in the entryway, gripping the strap of her bag. Her house looked the same at first. Same console table, same framed landscape print, same bowl for keys, but nothing felt untouched. It was as if a stranger had breathed over every surface. 20 minutes, Daniel said softly. Claire looked at him. We'll take the time we need. Emily went upstairs. The bedroom door was slightly open. She stopped outside it. For 6 years, this room had been the private center of her marriage, the place where she had folded laundry while Mark talked about work. the place where she had cried into a pillow after the miscarriage because she did not want Mark to see how deeply she was breaking. The place where she had believed herself safest. Now she was afraid to enter. Claire touched her arm. "I'll go first." Emily shook her head. "No." She pushed the door open. The room was too neat. That was the first wrong thing. Emily had left in chaos. Drawers open from when she had searched for a sweater before the dinner at Margaret's, a book on the nightstand, a cardigan over the chair. Now everything had been arranged, but not the way Emily arranged things. On the dresser sat a lipstick she had never bought. Dark red, open, used. Beside it was a bottle of perfume, the same sweet, sharp scent from the hallway. Emily picked it up carefully with a tissue. "Don't touch anything barehanded," Claire said behind her. "I know." Emily looked toward the closet. The doors were open. Inside, clothes had been moved. Dresses shifted, shoes turned outward, scarves folded differently. Someone had gone through everything. Someone had chosen. Emily's blue dress was gone, of course. So was the beige trench coat Vanessa had worn outside Emily's office. So was the green scarf Aunt Susan had seen near St. Mary's. But on the bed lay a dress Emily recognized. Black silk? One of hers. It had been cut, shortened at the hem, taken in at the waist, altered for another body. Emily touched the ruined fabric with trembling fingers. "She modified my clothes," she whispered. Claire's face was hard. "Photograph everything." Emily took pictures. The lipstick, the perfume, the closet, the missing spaces, the altered dress. Then she saw the wedding photo. It had been moved from the nightstand to the vanity. Emily walked toward it slowly. The glass was cracked, not shattered. Cut in a single jagged line across Emily's face. Mark's face was untouched. Emily picked up the frame. Behind her, Claire inhaled. On the mirror above the vanity, written in red lipstick, were 3 words. "I fit better." Emily stared. For a second, the room disappeared. She saw Vanessa standing here alone, wearing Emily's clothes, touching Emily's perfume, looking into Emily's mirror and smiling at a face close enough to steal. Claire took the frame gently from Emily's hands. "We're leaving." "No." "Emily." "No." Emily's voice shook, but she stepped closer to the mirror. "She wants me scared of my own reflection." Claire said nothing. Emily took a photo of the words. Then she opened the top drawer of the vanity. Inside, beneath a pile of old receipts, she found a folded paper. At first, she thought it was one of Mark's notes. Then she unfolded it and saw her own name, written again and again. Emily Parker, Emily Parker, Emily Parker. Dozens of signatures covered the page. Some were clumsy, some almost perfect. All leaned slightly left at the final stroke. Vanessa had practiced her name in Emily's own bedroom. Emily's fear cooled into something else. Evidence. She slid the paper into a clear plastic sleeve Claire handed her. Downstairs, Daniel was standing in the living room, pale. He had seen the mirror. "What the hell is going on?" he asked. Emily looked at him. "You tell me." "Mark said she was just—" Claire turned sharply. "She?" Daniel froze. Emily stepped closer. "Who is she, Daniel?" He rubbed both hands over his face. "I don't know. I swear I don't know. Mom saw her once. Mark told us she was helping prove you were lying." Emily stared at him. "Your mother saw Vanessa?" Daniel swallowed. "Yesterday." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Where?" "Here." Emily felt the floor tilt again. Margaret had been in this house. Margaret had seen the woman wearing Emily's face. And still, she had chosen Mark. "She looked exactly like you," Daniel said, voice breaking. Mom freaked out. "Mark said that was the point. He said you found some unstable woman and were using her to confuse everyone. He said Vanessa was a witness." Emily laughed once, bitter and breathless. "A witness." Daniel's eyes filled with shame. "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know." He said nothing. Emily walked past him toward the front door, carrying a small bag of clothing and a folder of evidence, leaving behind the house where another woman had written on her mirror. Outside, Claire said, "Margaret seeing Vanessa matters." Emily looked back at the house. "No," she said. "Margaret choosing not to care matters more." Across town, Mark was discovering that a weapon could develop a will of its own. Vanessa stood in his rented office suite with her arms crossed, watching him transfer funds from one account to another. She had come in without knocking. Mark hated that. Vanessa knew because she had begun to understand the small things he hated: disorder, interruption, emotional demands, women who expected promises to become facts. "What account is that?" she asked. Mark closed the laptop halfway. "Business." "Whose business?" "Mine." Vanessa smiled without warmth. "I thought we were past lying." Mark leaned back. "And I thought we had agreed you wouldn't come here." "You agreed. I listened." His mouth tightened. Vanessa looked around the office. Glass walls, gray carpet, a city view pretending to be success. She had once found this world impressive. Mark's suits, Mark's car, Mark's careful voice, Mark's certainty. He had seemed like a man who could open locked doors. Now she wondered how many doors he had opened only to push someone else through first. "You moved money from VC Holdings," she said. Mark's eyes changed, only for a second. But Vanessa saw it. "You checked? It has my initials on it. It was never yours." The sentence landed harder than Mark intended. Vanessa went still. Mark stood, smoothing his tie. "Listen to me. Things are delicate right now. Emily has a lawyer. We have to be careful." "We?" "Yes, we. You mean me when you need my face. You mean you when you move the money." Mark exhaled impatiently. "Don't become dramatic." Vanessa stepped closer. "You said when this was over, I wouldn't have to hide." "I said a lot of things to keep you focused." Her face hardened. Mark saw the mistake too late. He softened his voice. "Vanessa, you know what I meant." "No," she said. "I know what you said." He came around the desk and placed his hands on her shoulders. "I chose you." For months, those words had worked. They had slipped into every crack in her, into every birthday forgotten, every foster mother who had returned her file, every photograph of Emily smiling beside the mother Vanessa never had. Mark had found the deepest wound and spoken directly into it. "I chose you." But now, his hands felt like locks. Vanessa looked up at him. "Then prove it." "How?" "Bring me to your mother's house. Tell Margaret the truth. Tell everyone you're done with Emily, and you want me." Mark stepped back. There it was. The hesitation. Small but fatal. Vanessa smiled. "That's what I thought. This isn't the time. It will never be the time. Don't be stupid." Her eyes flashed. "Careful." Mark lowered his voice. "You are useful because you look like her. Do not mistake that for being her." The silence that followed was so complete, even Mark seemed to hear the danger in it. Vanessa stared at him. Then she laughed softly. "You really think you made me?" Mark said nothing. "You found me because I already existed. You used my face because it already matched hers. You used my anger because it was already there." She stepped close enough that he could smell the perfume she had taken from Emily's room. "But don't confuse using a fire with controlling it." Mark's jaw tightened. "What did you do?" Vanessa smiled. "Nothing yet." That evening, Emily received 3 emails from people who had seen her at a bar she had never entered. The first came from a former coworker. "Emily, I don't know what's going on, but I saw you at the Mercer tonight. You seemed really upset. Are you safe?" The second came from a cousin on Mark's side. "Disgusting. Still running around with men while Mark is suffering?" The third was from Aunt Susan. "Please tell me you were not just drunk at a bar, screaming at some woman." Emily's blood turned cold. She called Claire immediately. Claire was already on her way. The Mercer was a low-lit bar downtown with brass fixtures and dark green booths. By the time Emily and Claire arrived, Vanessa was gone. But the damage remained. A bartender remembered Emily because she had ordered bourbon, laughed loudly, and knocked over a glass near the end of the bar. "I don't drink bourbon," Emily said. The bartender looked from her to Claire, then back again. "Lady, I don't know what to tell you." Claire asked for security footage. The manager refused without a warrant or subpoena. Emily stepped outside, shaking with rage. "She's doing it again," she said. Claire nodded, but this time she made a mistake. "What mistake?" Claire pointed across the street. A private security camera above a jewelry store faced the alley beside the bar. They got the footage the next morning through Claire's investigator. It was grainy, but clear enough. A woman who looked like Emily exited the Mercer through the side alley, laughing with a man in a leather jacket. She stumbled slightly. He tried to touch her waist. She shoved him away. Then, near a parked car, the woman stopped. She took off her hair. Emily leaned closer to Claire's monitor. Not her hair, a wig. Underneath, Vanessa's real hair was pinned tightly to her scalp. She removed the wig, shook out the pins, and leaned against the car as if catching her breath. Then she lifted her left foot slightly and rubbed her ankle. Claire paused the video. "There," she said. Emily stared. "A small limp? A habit?" "Vanessa has an old ankle injury," Claire said. "You don't. Is it enough?" "Not alone." Emily closed her eyes. Those two words had become a curse. Not alone. The left hand was not enough alone. The necklace was not enough alone. The signature practice was not enough alone. The photos were not enough alone. Every piece mattered. But Mark had built a wall of evidence so high that each single truth looked too small beside it. Then Emily remembered the scar. She was sitting in Claire's office when it hit her. So suddenly she stood up. "My ear." Claire looked up. "What?" Emily pushed her hair behind her left ear. "The scar." Claire stepped closer. Behind Emily's left ear was a thin, pale line, barely 2 centimeters long. A childhood scar from when she had fallen against the edge of a metal garden gate at 12. Her mother had taken her to the emergency room. There had been stitches. There would be medical records. "The hotel video," Emily said quickly. When she turns her head before entering the room, you can see behind her ear. In Mark's version, it's blurry, but if there's a clear copy... Claire was already reaching for the file. "The copy Mark submitted is compressed," Claire said, possibly intentionally. "If we get the original, we can prove she doesn't have the scar." Claire's eyes sharpened. "And if the original shows the limp, the left-hand use, the ear shape, and no scar, then we have a much stronger expert case. Can we get it from the hotel?" "We try." They did. The Alderbrook Hotel gave the answer Claire feared. Their internal footage had already been deleted under their retention policy. Mark had waited long enough. Emily sat across from Claire as the hotel's legal department explained through email that footage older than 7 days was routinely overwritten unless preserved by prior request. 7 days. Mark had shown the video after the window had nearly closed. Emily gripped the edge of the table. "He planned that too." Claire did not answer right away. She was reading the email again. Then her expression changed. "What?" Emily asked. "The hotel uses a third-party security vendor. So, internal footage is overwritten, but remote backup may be stored separately for 30 days. Emily stood. "Can we get it?" Claire was already dialing. The company was called North Star Security Systems. Their main office was in another county. They would not release footage without authorization, subpoena, or emergency legal request. Claire began drafting papers before the call had fully ended. By then, they had less than 24 hours before the 30-day backup cycle rolled over. Mark must have learned of the request by late afternoon. At 5:03 p.m., his attorney emailed Claire, accusing Emily of harassment, stalking, and intimidation of Vanessa Cole. At 5:17, Daniel texted Emily, "Did you go to Vanessa's apartment today?" Emily replied immediately, "Number." A message came back. Mark says Vanessa was attacked. Emily's stomach dropped. Claire read the text and said, "Do not respond further." At 5:42, 2 police officers arrived at Claire's office. Emily knew before they spoke. Her body knew. "Emily Parker?" one officer asked. Claire stood. "I'm her attorney. What is this regarding?" "We need to speak with Mrs. Parker about an incident involving Vanessa Cole." Claire's voice cooled. "Any questions go through me." The officer looked uncomfortable. "Miss Cole reported that Mrs. Parker came to her apartment building, threatened her, and physically assaulted her." Emily stared at him. "What?" Claire stepped slightly in front of her. "That is false." The second officer took out a tablet. "We have video showing Mrs. Parker near the building." Emily's blood went cold. "Vanessa." "Again," Claire said. My client has been in this office with me since 2 o'clock. We'll need to verify that. You can verify it now. My receptionist, building cameras, parking records. Ma'am, the first officer said. There is also a witness statement from Mark Reynolds. Emily laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound came out sharp and broken. Of course there is. The officer looked at her carefully. That look, measuring, concerned, suspicious, made Emily stop laughing at once. Claire noticed too. My client will not answer questions, she said. Are you arresting her? The officers exchanged a glance. Given the complaint, the alleged threat, and the pending domestic dispute, we need her to come with us. Claire's jaw tightened. On what charge? Assault and harassment pending review. Emily's hands went numb. The room seemed to move far away. Claire turned to her. Say nothing. Emily nodded, though she was barely breathing. Outside, the sky was darkening. Rain threatened again, but had not yet fallen. The officers walked Emily out of Claire's building like she was dangerous. People in the lobby looked. A woman holding a coffee stopped mid-conversation. The receptionist covered her mouth. Emily kept her head high until they reached the sidewalk. Then she saw Mark. He stood across the street beside his car, wearing a navy coat and the solemn face of a man suffering nobly through his wife's collapse. Beside him stood Margaret. Emily's chest tightened. Margaret looked at Emily in handcuffs and did not look shocked. She looked satisfied. The officers guided Emily toward the patrol car. Mark crossed the street slowly. Claire stepped in front of him. Do not speak to my client. Mark ignored her and looked at Emily. His voice was soft. You should have signed when you had the chance. Emily stared at him. For a moment, all the fear disappeared. There was only clarity. You're scared, she said. His eyes flickered. Of what? He asked. Of the original video. The change in his face was tiny, but Emily saw it. Claire saw it too. Mark recovered quickly. I'm scared of what you're becoming. Emily smiled then. Not because she was safe, not because she was winning, because for the first time he had failed to hide the truth fast enough. The officer opened the car door. As Emily ducked her head to get in, she looked past Mark. Down the block, near the corner, Claire's investigator was running toward Claire with a laptop bag in one hand and a phone in the other. Claire turned toward him. He nodded once. Emily's heart stopped. Claire looked back at Emily through the open patrol car door. For the first time that day, Claire smiled. It was small, sharp, deadly. Then she lifted her phone just enough for Emily to see the screen. A video file. North Star backup, Alderbrook hallway, 10:43 p.m. Emily's breath caught. They had it. The officer shut the door. Through the glass, Emily saw Mark still standing on the sidewalk, unaware that the ground under him had just cracked open. Margaret touched his arm as if comforting him. Vanessa was nowhere in sight, but Emily could feel her everywhere, in the false report, in the borrowed face, in the staged injuries, in the shadow of a woman who had spent years believing Emily had stolen a life that should have been hers. The patrol car pulled away from the curb. Emily sat in the back seat, wrists cuffed, cheek reflected faintly in the window. She should have been terrified. Part of her was. But another part, colder and steadier, watched Claire shrink in the distance with the backup video in her hand and understood something Mark had not. He had built his entire lie on images. The hotel camera, the bank camera, the staged bar footage, the fake sightings, the carefully chosen angles and compressed files. He had trusted cameras because cameras could be made to show what he wanted. But somewhere in the original footage, hidden behind the blur he had created, was the thing he had not been able to manufacture. The scar, the limp, the left hand, the truth. Emily leaned back against the hard plastic seat and closed her eyes. Mark had locked her out. Vanessa had worn her face. Margaret had judged her. The police had put her in handcuffs. But Claire had the video, and the next time the world watched Emily Parker on a screen, it would not be to condemn her. It would be to watch Mark Reynolds burn. Emily Parker spent 6 hours in a holding room that smelled like bleach, metal, and other people's fear. She did not cry, not because she was strong enough to refuse tears, but because something inside her had moved beyond them. She had cried in the motel. She had cried after losing her job. She had cried when Aunt Susan looked at her through Mark's lies and wondered whether grief had broken her mind. She had cried when she saw her mother holding baby Vanessa in an old photograph, and when she realized that the woman destroying her was not a stranger, but blood. But in that holding room, with her wrists aching from the cuffs and her name attached to a crime she had not committed, Emily felt strangely clear. Mark had wanted her hysterical. Vanessa had wanted her erased. Margaret had wanted her ashamed. Instead, Emily sat still beneath the buzzing fluorescent light and replayed Claire's face outside the patrol car. The small smile, the lifted phone, the file name on the screen, North Star Backup, Alderbrook Hallway, 10:43 p.m. The original video existed. The truth existed. By morning, Claire had done what Claire did best. She had turned outrage into paperwork. The assault accusation did not hold. Claire produced building security footage, receptionist testimony, parking garage records, and time-stamped office entry logs, proving Emily had been in Claire's office when Vanessa claimed the attack happened. By noon, the officers who had looked at Emily like she was unstable were avoiding her eyes. But Claire did not stop there. She filed an emergency motion to consolidate the accusations surrounding the divorce, the alleged financial misconduct, the harassment complaint, and the disputed hotel evidence into a preliminary evidentiary hearing. Mark's attorney objected. Claire expected him to. Then she disclosed that she had obtained the original backup footage from North Star Security Systems. After that, Mark's attorney stopped objecting so loudly. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. 7 days. 7 days in which Mark sent no direct messages. 7 days in which Margaret did not call. 7 days in which Vanessa vanished from every place Claire's investigator expected to find her. 7 days in which Emily lived in the quiet before impact. On the morning of the hearing, Emily stood before the mirror in Claire's office restroom and pinned her hair back behind her left ear. The scar was visible now, a pale, thin line behind the curve of her ear, small enough that most people never noticed it, permanent enough that it had become part of her body's private history. Her mother had once cried over that scar. Emily remembered being 12, sitting on the bathroom counter while her mother dabbed ointment on the stitches with shaking hands. "I should have been watching," her mother had whispered. Emily had said, "Mom, I'm fine." Her mother had kissed her forehead and said, "You're my baby. I'm allowed to be scared." Emily touched the scar now. Vanessa had been her mother's baby too. That truth still hurt, but it no longer weakened Emily. A knock sounded. Claire opened the restroom door just enough to look in. "Ready?" Emily lowered her hand. "No," she said. Claire nodded. "Good. Ready people are usually overconfident." Emily almost smiled. They walked into the courtroom at 9:03 a.m. Mark was already there. He sat at his attorney's table in a navy suit, clean-shaven, composed, the picture of reasonable male suffering. His hands were folded. His wedding ring was gone. Emily noticed that first and hated herself for noticing. Margaret sat behind him in a cream jacket and pearls. When Emily entered, Margaret looked at her with the same cold judgment she had worn at the dinner table. But there was something else now, too. A strain around the mouth, a flicker of uncertainty. Daniel sat beside her, eyes lowered. Vanessa sat 2 rows back. Emily felt her before she looked. Vanessa wore black. Her hair was pinned neatly, not styled like Emily's for once. Sunglasses rested on her head. The V pendant was missing from her throat. But she still had Emily's face, or close enough to make the room feel wrong. Their eyes met. Vanessa did not smile. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Judge Miriam Keller was in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair and a face that suggested she had heard every kind of lie and had lost patience with most of them. She reviewed the files briefly, then looked over her glasses. "We are here regarding preliminary matters in Reynolds versus Parker, including disputed evidence connected to marital misconduct, alleged dissipation of assets, identity fraud, and related protective complaints." I understand there are also issues that may be referred for criminal investigation depending on what is established today. Mark lowered his head slightly, as if the weight of the situation saddened him. Emily watched him perform. She wondered how many times she had mistaken performance for character. Mark's attorney went first. His name was Alan Pierce, a man with silver hair and a courtroom voice polished smooth by years of saying ugly things politely. He stood and gave the story Mark had built. A devastated husband, a troubled wife, a secret affair, a hotel video, messages, a drained joint account, erratic behavior, harassment toward an innocent third party, Miss Vanessa Cole. Emily listened without moving. Pierce played the compressed hotel video Mark had first shown at Margaret's house. There it was again, the hallway, the man in the gray jacket, the woman in the blue dress. Emily felt the old humiliation try to rise. Then Claire touched her wrist under the table, a small pressure. Stay. Pierce continued with the bank images, the withdrawal form, the screenshots of messages supposedly sent from Emily's phone. He spoke carefully, never calling Emily crazy outright, but placing the idea in the room again and again. Unstable, distressed, financially reckless, possibly acting under emotional strain, unable to accept the consequences of her own conduct. By the time he sat down, the story looked almost neat. Almost. Then Claire stood. She did not begin by shouting. She did not accuse Mark of conspiracy. She did not even say Vanessa's name. She simply walked to the evidence screen and looked at the judge. Your Honor, Mr. Reynolds has repeatedly said that the camera does not lie. We agree. Mark looked up. Claire turned slightly toward him. Cameras do not lie, but people cut footage. People compress files. People choose angles. People submit copies when originals would reveal too much. Pierce stood. Objection, argumentative. Sustained as to tone, Judge Keller said. Ms. Dawson, proceed with questions. Claire smiled faintly. Gladly. She called Mark first. He walked to the witness stand with the confidence of a man who believed he had prepared for every question. Claire let him swear in. Then she began gently. Mr. Reynolds, you testified through filings that you discovered your wife's alleged affair after seeing a charge from the Alderbrook Hotel, correct? Yes. And after that, you hired a private investigator? Yes. What is the investigator's name? Mark paused. Excuse me? The name of the private investigator who obtained the footage. Pierce shifted. Mark cleared his throat. It was through a contact. So no licensed investigator? I don't remember the details. Claire picked up a paper. You don't remember the person who supposedly uncovered evidence that ended your marriage? Mark's jaw tightened. I was under emotional distress. Of course. Who gave you the hotel footage? My attorney received it. From whom? Mark looked at Pierce. Claire turned to the judge. Your Honor, this goes to chain of custody. Judge Keller looked at Mark. Answer if you know. Mark swallowed. Vanessa Cole provided some information. A ripple moved through the room. Emily did not look back at Vanessa. Not yet. Claire nodded. Miss Cole, the woman you described as a witness. Yes. The woman you were seen with in a bar 2 years ago? Mark's expression stiffened. Claire displayed the photo from the holiday mixer. Mark and Vanessa in the booth, the V pendant at her throat. Margaret leaned forward. Claire asked, How long have you known Vanessa Cole? Mark's answer came too quickly. Not long. Claire clicked to another image, a time-stamped photo from Mark's phone records, obtained through discovery after Pierce made the mistake of submitting partial communications. Is 2 years not long? Pierce objected. The judge allowed the question. Mark's face tightened. We met socially. That doesn't mean... Were you having a sexual relationship with Vanessa Cole while married to Emily Parker? The room went silent. Mark looked at Emily for the first time. She gave him nothing. I made mistakes, he said. Claire smiled coldly. That was not my question. Pierce stood again. Your Honor. Judge Keller cut him off. The witness will answer. Mark's voice lowered. Yes. Margaret made a small sound behind him. Claire let the answer sit. Then she moved. You also testified that my client withdrew nearly all funds from the joint savings account. Yes. And that the bank camera showed Emily Parker completing the transaction. Yes. Claire picked up a remote. Let's discuss what cameras show. She called Dr. Ethan Brooks. Dr. Brooks was not dramatic. That made him more devastating. He wore a plain gray suit, carried a folder, and spoke in the calm voice of a man who understood that facts did not need theatrical help to ruin someone. He explained his qualifications: forensic image analysis, gait comparison, video compression artifacts, biometric markers, expert testimony in state and federal courts. Then Claire played the original North Star backup footage, not Mark's compressed copy. The real one. The hotel hallway appeared again, clearer this time, sharper, wider, longer. Emily felt the courtroom lean toward the screen. The woman in the blue dress entered frame. Even now, a murmur moved through the room. She looked like Emily. But this time, the footage did not stop where Mark's version had stopped. This time, the woman turned her head toward the man in the gray jacket. Claire paused. Dr. Brooks stood beside the screen with a laser pointer. "Here," he said, behind the subject's left ear. He enlarged the frame. The curve of the ear filled the monitor. Smooth skin, no scar. Claire then displayed a medical photograph of Emily's scar taken that week, followed by childhood emergency room records documenting a laceration behind her left ear at age 12. Dr. Brooks pointed. "Mrs. Parker has a permanent scar approximately 1.8 centimeters in length behind the left ear. The subject in the hotel footage does not." Pierce rose. "Lighting could obscure—" Dr. Brooks did not look at him. "The lighting is sufficient. I also enhanced the frame using standard forensic methods without altering content. There is no scar." The courtroom was very still. Emily kept her eyes on Mark. His face had gone pale. Dr. Brooks continued. "The subject also uses her left hand for primary tasks: key card retrieval, door access, purse adjustment, and later contact with the male subject. These movements appear natural, not compensatory. Mrs. Parker is documented right-hand dominant." Claire played the clip. Vanessa removed the key card with her left hand. "Swipe. Door. Left hand. A small thing. A fatal thing." Dr. Brooks moved to the next point. "The subject displays a slight asymmetry in gait, favoring the right ankle. This is visible over multiple steps. Mrs. Parker does not display this gait pattern in comparison footage taken from her office lobby and courthouse entry." The screen split. Left. Vanessa walking through the hotel hallway. Right. Emily walking beside Claire into the courthouse. Different rhythm, different weight, different body. Additionally, Dr. Brooks said, the external ear structure differs. The helix shape, lobe attachment, and upper rim contour do not match Mrs. Parker's. Ears are highly useful in image comparison because people rarely think to disguise them. Claire turned to the judge. "In other words, Dr. Brooks, is the woman in the hotel video Emily Parker?" Dr. Brooks answered without hesitation. "No, she is not." The sound that went through the courtroom was not loud, but it was powerful. A collective shift. The first crack in the lie becoming visible to everyone at once. Claire then displayed the bank image. The woman at the counter, the pen in her left hand, the V pendant. Dr. Brooks explained the same markers. No scar, left-hand dominance, different ear, slight shoulder angle difference. He also noted that the signature was a simulated drawing rather than a natural signature. Claire placed Emily's real signature beside the bank signature. "They look similar," Dr. Brooks said, "but the movement patterns differ. The question signature contains hesitation marks and directional pulls consistent with imitation by a left-handed writer." Emily looked down at her hands. Her right hand, the hand that had written her name honestly all her life. Claire called Emily next. Emily walked to the stand with her heart pounding, but her voice stayed clear. Claire did not ask about betrayal first. She asked about numbers. Emily explained the joint account, the withdrawal, the layered transfers, the cashier's check, the wires, the shell company. Then Claire displayed the flow chart Emily had built. Joint savings account to Riverbend Processing, to VC Holdings LLC, to secondary account ending in 4412, to private investment account linked to Mark Reynolds. Judge Keller leaned forward. Claire asked, "Mrs. Parker, If you had withdrawn that money to flee with another man, would there be any reason for a portion of it to return to an account controlled by your husband? Emily looked at Mark. No, she said, unless he was the one controlling where it went. Mark's attorney objected. Judge Keller allowed the answer as financial analysis based on Emily's professional experience. Claire turned to Mark's table. Mr. Reynolds did not lose the money. He rerouted it. Mark's composure cracked then. Only slightly, but enough. A flush rose in his neck. Claire called Vanessa Cole. Vanessa moved to the stand slowly. For the first time since Emily had seen her, Vanessa looked less like a mirror and more like a woman trapped inside the consequences of what she had chosen. Her face was pale, her mouth tight. She did not look at Mark. Claire began with the necklace. Ms. Cole, did you purchase this V pendant from Nina's boutique on Hawthorne Street? Vanessa's voice was low. Yes. Claire displayed the bank image. Is this you? No. Claire displayed the boutique receipt. Is this your email? Vanessa said nothing. Judge Keller said, answer the question. Yes. Claire displayed the bar photo of Vanessa with Mark. Is this you with Mark Reynolds? Vanessa looked at Mark. He did not look back. Yes, she said. Claire then displayed the page of practice signatures found in Emily's bedroom. Did you write these? Vanessa's jaw tightened. No. Claire displayed a second image. The same paper, photographed beside the red lipstick on Emily's vanity. The mirror behind it marked, I fit better. Claire asked, were you in Emily Parker's house? Vanessa looked at Mark again. This time he looked at her, but his expression held warning, not comfort. No, she said. Claire did not react. She simply played the North Star back up beyond the hotel hallway. The footage continued after the supposed affair scene. It showed the woman in the blue dress leaving through a rear exit 20 minutes later. Then, in the parking lot, the camera caught another angle. Vanessa removed a wig. Mark stepped into frame. He took the blue dress's waist tie in his hand and said something the camera could not hear. Then he kissed Vanessa. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Margaret covered her mouth. Emily felt the moment pass through her like lightning, not because she had needed proof for herself, because now they all had to see it. Mark stood suddenly. That doesn't prove I planned anything. Claire turned slowly. No, she said. It proves you lied. Mark sat down only after Pierce pulled at his sleeve. Claire faced Vanessa again. You helped Mr. Reynolds create false evidence against Emily Parker, didn't you? Vanessa's eyes filled, but her voice stayed hard. He said she deserved it. Emily closed her eyes briefly. There it was. Not denial. Justification. Claire softened her tone, but only slightly. Why would you believe that? Vanessa said nothing. So Claire called Linda Foster. Linda walked to the stand with shaking hands. She told the court about Emily's mother, about the baby born in 1991, about the adoption, about Vanessa returning years later, too late to meet the mother who had given her away, about the photographs in the old house, about the letter. You gave me away and kept her. By the time Linda finished, the courtroom had changed. The story was no longer only about a husband's affair or a forged bank form. It had become older, sadder, more twisted. A wound Mark had found and turned into a weapon. Vanessa was crying silently now. Claire asked, Ms. Foster, to your knowledge, did Emily Parker know Vanessa Cole existed before these events? No, Linda said. She did not. Emily looked at Vanessa. Vanessa's face crumpled for one brief second. Then Mark destroyed her. He stood abruptly, ignoring Pierce's hand on his arm. This is exactly what I've been trying to say, Mark said. Vanessa is obsessed with Emily. She manipulated me. She approached me because of the resemblance. She created this whole fantasy about replacing my wife. I made mistakes, yes, but I did not plan fraud. I did not tell her to forge signatures or steal money. I was deceived too. Vanessa turned her head slowly toward him. The courtroom went silent again. Emily saw the exact moment Vanessa understood. Mark was not going to save her. He was not going to choose her. He was going to feed her to the court and step over what remained. Vanessa stared at him as if seeing him clearly for the first time. You said we would take it back together, she whispered. Mark's voice hardened. I never told you to impersonate my wife. The cruelty of it was stunning. Even after everything, Emily felt the blow of it. Vanessa had helped destroy her, yes, but Mark had known exactly where to put the knife. Into Emily, into Vanessa, into any woman foolish enough to believe his tenderness meant anything more than strategy. Vanessa laughed once. It was a broken sound. Then she looked at Claire. I have something. Pierce stood. Your Honor, I advise. Vanessa cut him off. You don't represent me? Judge Keller looked at her carefully. Ms. Cole, you understand anything you provide may implicate you? Vanessa wiped her face. Yes. She reached into her bag with trembling hands and took out a phone. Mark went still. Claire stepped forward. Vanessa said, he told me to record Emily if she ever confessed. He said recordings make people believe what they don't want to believe. She looked at Mark. So I started recording him. Mark's face drained of color. The audio played through the courtroom speakers. At first, there was rustling. Then Mark's voice. Clear, cold, impatient. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be convincing enough for the camera. Vanessa's voice answered, softer, younger somehow. What if she proves it wasn't her? She won't. The hotel copy will be compressed. The bank won't release anything fast enough. By the time she gets a lawyer, she'll be defending 10 lies at once. A pause, then Vanessa. And after? Mark. After she signs, I keep the house. The money covers the exposure at West Haven Partners. You get your share. Then we disappear from each other's problems. Vanessa. You said you wanted me. Mark laughed. Not kindly. I said what you needed to hear. The recording continued. His plan unfolded in his own voice. The phone, the dress, the hotel, the bank, the fake messages, the staged instability, the money, the divorce. The way he described Emily made her stomach turn. She trusts evidence. That's her weakness. She thinks numbers tell the truth. So we give her numbers that lie. When the audio stopped, no one moved. Not even Mark. For the first time since Emily had known him, he had no face prepared. No wounded husband. No reasonable man. No careful victim. Only a hollow-eyed fraud caught in the sound of his own voice. Margaret stood behind him, with one hand pressed to her chest. Her pearls trembled against her throat. Mark, she whispered. He did not turn around. Judge Keller's expression was stone. I am referring this matter immediately for criminal investigation, she said. The court finds substantial evidence of identity fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit financial fraud, perjury concerns, fabricated evidence, and misconduct affecting these divorce proceedings. The words landed one by one. Identity fraud, forgery, conspiracy, fabricated evidence. Emily felt them not as punishment, but as air. At last, the truth had language. Judge Keller continued. The disputed financial accounts would be frozen. The house could not be sold or refinanced. Emily would be granted immediate supervised access to retrieve all personal property, followed by a hearing on temporary possession. The allegations of adultery and dissipation against Emily would be stricken pending further proceedings. The harassment complaint would be reviewed in light of fabricated evidence. Mark sat rigid. Vanessa stared at the table. Margaret began to cry. After the judge recessed, the courtroom did not explode the way Emily had imagined it might. There was no dramatic shouting, no instant justice, no handcuffs on Mark in that exact moment. Real consequences moved through systems, motions, referrals, investigations, court orders. But something irreversible had happened. Everyone had seen. Everyone had heard. Emily walked out of the courtroom on her own feet. Claire was beside her. In the hallway, reporters were not waiting. There was no crowd, just a few attorneys, a bailiff, Daniel standing near the wall with his face in his hands, and Margaret moving toward Emily as if approaching a grave. Emily, Margaret said. Emily stopped. Margaret's face had collapsed in a way Emily had never seen. Without pride, without judgment, she looked old. I'm sorry, Margaret whispered. I didn't know. Emily looked at her for a long moment. Yes, she said. You did. Margaret flinched. Emily's voice stayed quiet. You knew something was wrong when you saw Vanessa. You knew I kept saying it wasn't me. You knew there were questions, but believing Mark let you hate me the way you always wanted to. Margaret began crying harder. I was protecting my son. No, Emily said. You were protecting the version of him you needed to believe in. Daniel looked up. Emily continued, You slapped me. You humiliated me. You helped spread a lie that cost me my job, my home, and my name. I'm glad you know the truth now, but your apology does not get to arrive before my anger leaves. Margaret covered her mouth. Emily walked past her. Near the elevator, Vanessa waited. Claire stiffened, but Emily shook her head slightly. Vanessa looked smaller without the performance. Without Emily's clothes, without Mark's plan wrapped around her, without the vicious smile, she looked like a woman standing in the wreckage of two lives and realizing she had mistaken revenge for repair. I thought it would feel different, Vanessa said. Emily said nothing. I thought if I took what you had, I would know what it felt like to be chosen. Emily looked at her half-sister. The word still felt impossible. Sister, enemy, victim, criminal. All of them lived in Vanessa's face. And did you? Emily asked. Vanessa's eyes filled. No, Emily nodded once. I am sorry for what happened to you, she said. I am sorry our mother lost you. I am sorry no one protected you when you were a child. Vanessa's lips trembled. But I will not apologize for being loved, Emily continued. I will not apologize for surviving the childhood you were denied. And I will not forgive you, just because we share blood. Vanessa looked down. I know. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. Mark used your pain, but you chose where to point it. A tear slipped down Vanessa's cheek. For once, she did not wipe it away with theatrical cruelty. She simply let it fall. Emily turned and walked to the elevator. Claire followed. When the doors closed, Emily finally exhaled. Claire looked at her. You okay? Emily almost laughed. No, Claire nodded. Fair. Then Emily said, but I'm still here. Weeks passed. Not easily. Mark was placed under criminal investigation. West Haven Financial Partners suspended him after auditors uncovered irregularities far larger than Emily had known. The account tied to the diverted funds was frozen. VC Holdings became part of the investigation. Vanessa cooperated with prosecutors, though cooperation did not erase what she had done. Margaret sent 3 letters. Emily opened none of them. Her company called. Peter Langford's voice was thick with shame when he apologized. He said the internal review had cleared her. He said they would restore her access, her title, her pay. He said everyone was horrified. Emily thanked him. She did not comfort him. The house was granted to Emily temporarily while the divorce proceeded. The first time she returned alone, she stood in the foyer for several minutes before turning on the lights. The air still felt changed, but this time, the house did not reject her. Claire had arranged for a cleaning crew. The lipstick was gone from the mirror, the perfume bottle removed, the altered dress photographed and stored as evidence. The cracked wedding photo sat on the dining table in a box marked property. Emily carried it to the trash, then stopped. She looked at Mark's untouched face behind the cracked glass. For years, she had thought betrayal would look like passion. Lipstick on a collar, a late-night message, a woman's perfume. She knew now betrayal could look like paperwork, like legal language, like a husband saying, "Camera doesn't lie," while building the lie himself. Emily set the photo down. Then she removed the picture from the frame, tore it once down the middle, and threw only Mark's half away. Her own half she kept, not because she missed that woman, because she wanted to remember her. The woman who had trusted, the woman who had been fooled, the woman who had been locked out in the rain and still found her way back. That evening, Emily stood in front of the bedroom mirror. For the first time in weeks, she looked at her face without searching for Vanessa inside it. She lifted her hair. The scar behind her ear was pale beneath her fingers, small, ordinary, a mark from a childhood accident. A mark Mark had forgotten. A mark Vanessa had not known how to copy. a mark that had turned a stolen face back into Emily's own. She thought of her mother then, not as a saint, not as a villain, as a young woman who had made an impossible choice and left behind two daughters to bleed from it in different ways. Emily did not know if she would ever speak to Vanessa again. She did not know if forgiveness would come, but she knew this. Blood could explain a wound. It could not excuse a knife. She let her hair fall and looked herself in the eyes. Vanessa had tried to steal her face. Mark had tried to steal her life. Margaret had tried to steal her dignity. But the truth had survived in the smallest place, behind her ear, beneath her hair, in the one scar no one had thought mattered. Emily turned off the bedroom light and walked downstairs. Outside, the evening sky over West Haven was clear after days of rain. The hydrangeas along the front path had begun to bloom again, pale blue against the dark soil. Emily stepped onto the porch. No locked door behind her, no borrowed face ahead of her. For the first time in a long time, the silence around her did not feel like abandonment. It felt like freedom. And when she looked toward the street, toward the world that had once watched her stand in the rain and believed the worst, Emily Parker did not lower her eyes. This was her face. This was her name. This was her life. And no one would ever wear it again.